Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome all of you to the City Council work session meeting of Tuesday, April 11th. And first, we have approval of the agenda.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So first on our agenda, we have public comment. I would like to remind everyone that public comment is limited to 3 minutes or less. And when you come up, state your name and mailing address, and don't forget to be kind and respectful. So after all that, does anybody want to say anything? Jan?
Jan Siebert Warmond, PO Box 778, Cannon Beach. Dear Mayor and City Councilors, tonight I'd like to ask you all to help us as a community begin to develop a respectful, balanced, and objective process by which we could look at the naming or possible renaming of public facilities, such as streets, bridges, etc. As we know from past experience, this can be a sensitive topic, but it could also be an opportunity for those in our town to find a way to come together and understand one another better. In fairness to all members of our community, past, present, and future, it is so important to put a thorough, thoughtful policy in place so that significant decisions regarding naming or possible renaming are given the time, research, and consideration they need and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Anyone else? Yeah.
Excuse me, Deanna Hammond, PO Box 942. I would thank you for hearing me this evening, Madam Mayor and councilors. I would like to talk about the rejuvenation project. I believe that we are still very much in an impasse on the cost of this project. I just don't see how with the exuberant amount for City Hall, with interest being between 50 and 60 million, and then the exuberant amount for project between around 20 to 22 million with interest for the school, that we can afford those costs as a town without bankrupting ourselves. I believe in bettering our community, but I don't believe in spending it all. And I think that we would have to go all in plus in order to do those projects. I know that tonight on your agenda is talking about whether you're going to put together a committee to work on the budget, or to actually, it read to me kind of like it was to run the school project. And after it becomes a tourism facility and the renaming of it. I agree that we need to look at a budget for what it would be like to run that project after it is in full build. But you also need to take into consideration what project you are building. It looks like we have 4 options. Everybody knows that I don't agree with option number 4 and probably not option number 3 either. But setting that aside, so please take that into consideration, that if you put a committee or whatever you're going to put together, how long is it going to take them to actually figure out what it's going to cost to run this? And then how much is money going to cost us then? Money's already expensive. And there's scuttlebutt that they are going to be raising rates again. So what does that look like for us down the road? So please take that into consideration. We need some numbers. We need some numbers to work with so we even know what we can actually really truly afford, because I think we all know that that center probably isn't going to make any money. Probably isn't going to create enough revenue to take care of itself. But of course, without knowing what that build looks like, we don't know the answers to that. So I think pinning that down first is important. And there's also something we might want to consider is, can we even do that build? How does that build fall into the tsunami inundation zone? And what's the max capacity of that building going to look like? Are you even going to be allowed to do it? Even though it is a remodel, there becomes a point where we paid $700,000 for the property. There comes a point when, or maybe that's a number I'm throwing out there, but there comes a point when it's no longer a remodel and it's an actual new build. And that is in a tsunami inundation zone. So I respectfully ask you to look into what legislation in 2021 looked like for those projects. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sam?
Lydia, 123 West First. I have a letter. I'm going to follow Jan's style and read it for the audience. I think everybody has a copy. This is about the discussion of this Cannon Beach Elementary renovation operation. Point of concern is that the operations of a new facility may need to be distinctly separate from the rules of free speech that bind the municipal government. The operations of the facility need to be independent from the city council and staff and run by an independent organization with clear and precise models of control. This does not limit the city's control. The city will hold the purse strings if there are any funds available for operations. Nor does it limit the council representative on the board. Strongly recommended is an oversight board structure as a nonprofit who will control a management hire in charge of daily operations. This community has always trusted a board over that of a singular managerial position that does not know the history and delicate differences this community cherishes. Do question what level of staffing we'll be able to afford once all the funding is consumed by our debt service. We all know this is not a facility that will entirely pay for itself. This community is accustomed and expectant of volunteer inclusion for everything community-oriented. The visitor-oriented aspect is a larger operational nut and should detail in the rental agreements every nuance concerning setup, tear down, cleanup, and scheduling. In creating a management plan, whomever is responsible must have operations guidelines given them by our community. Ultimately, a management hire is the best focus for this facility, but they will need guidance and community oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Next, anyone? Is there anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay,
Members?
okay, Eric. Eric, be kind and respectful.
My name's Eric Ostrander, PO Box 97. I just had a comment about some information in the packet for the agenda item 5, I believe, the dark sky designation. I'm super excited to see that the city is moving forward, or at least moving the discussion forward for seeking out an IDA certification for community, for a dark sky community for Cannon Beach. I know in the past we've all talked about we are a dark sky community, but we've never done anything to seek that, despite the fact that we do have ordinances on the books that kind of get us close to what would be required for being IDA dark sky community certified. And then the other comment I had about that is I noticed in the packet, it looks like the second attachment that's in there, how many lumens to replace my bulb. The 40 watt, 60 watt, 70, 75 watt, that sort of thing is kind of a misleading chart. It's kind of outdated, as watts are a measurement of electricity, and historically incandescent bulbs are pretty easily measured. 60 watt gave you this many lumens. but now with modern LEDs, they're significantly more programmable. So you can have a 60 watt that's producing significantly more than that, or even 60 watt equivalents that are only using 11 watts, but are producing more than what's shown on this chart. So I think making sure that all of our language sticks with the lumens, which is measurable, or lux, which is the other measurable unit of light measure. That's not mentioned in our code, but kind of sticking more towards that sort of thing. But like I said, I'm excited that the city is seeking seeking out this conversation for the dark sky community designation. And then my second comment was in support of the next agenda item after that, for the renaming of the bridge. I'm excited to see that the discussion is moving forward from the last work session, where this was initially, or I think it was 2 work sessions ago, where it was initially brought up to potentially rename the bridge to the Brigadier General Thayer Bridge crossing Elk Creek. And I really look forward to hearing the conversation about how that's going to fit into our city code of what we do for naming public facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else? Jim?
PO Box 64, Cannon Beach, Oregon. On the 28th meeting, you guys had asked me to help coordinate a meeting with the lodging group pertaining to the discussion about the rejuvenation project and the increase in transient lodging room tax. My initial reach out to the people that you guys requested to be a part of this is proving difficult. And the 18th seems problematic for picking a time. I was wondering if you guys would be able to pick a few other days in your schedule, being that there's only 6 of you, and then I can coordinate with the lodging group, which is a bigger number, to see who can attend and represent the lodging group to have that meeting with you. So I just wanted to ask if you could give me dates that fit into your calendar so that we can coordinate better. I hadn't had a chance to reach out to do that prior today. I've had a bunch of other things going on personally with my hand and so forth. So I wanted to make that request of you. And then I was looking in the packet from the 28th. I submitted a letter to all of you at that meeting, and I didn't see that anywhere in the packet. So I was just wondering if that's somewhere else on the website, or
the packet's the packet from when we issue it, unless we officially amend it. So it's in the record if you submit it at the meeting, but it doesn't go on the website.
so it's nowhere. I was just wondering what happened to that. So
It's in the record. We have an official record.
so nobody can see that on the website. Is that the case?
I mean, we try to post everything that's received before the meeting. I don't always get everything received at the meeting posted.
Has the council read that letter?
Which letter are you talking
The one that
about?
I presented at the 28th?
If you presented a letter at the 28th, it would have been handed out to all the counselors, right?
Well, I handed it off.
Oh, it's the letter you gave me?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were reading from that letter. So that letter now goes in the record and you gave your public comment. Like Jan often reads a letter and then hands me the letter. So I thought that's what you were doing. You didn't specify it needed to go to the counselors. So I
Okay,
apologize.
well, I would prefer the council to read it, and I just wasn't sure of the protocol of that, so that's why I was asking.
Okay.
We can forward it to council.
All right, thank you.
And that was, I have a question on that. That was at the 28th meeting?
Yeah,
Okay. And what was the subject of the letter?
it was just about all the funding options and
Oh, okay, great.
some of my comments on that, which I did touch on, but the letter was much more well written than what I spoke. So,
Okay, great.
okay.
Okay, we'll get it. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else online? Oh. No,
Ow.
you're stepping out. I just want us to say goodbye. Bye.
I did submit a letter that wasn't in the other packet for this. I'll email you.
We got a letter. We got a.
We did get a letter. We got a letter.
I posted all public comment received this afternoon. So it won't be in the comment. It wouldn't be in the packet. It would be under supporting documents.
Got a letter email anyway.
Yeah, it was earlier. It was late last week, Jen.
We got that. We got that.
Yeah, they have it.
Okay.
You got it. Said they have it,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure it's on the,
Oh, okay.
it's not in the packet though, but it's under supporting documents. It says input received after packet was distributed.
I think yeah, we do.
I'll send it at 2:30.
Thanks, guys. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next we will start our regular agenda, and the first item is the municipal code chapter 13.18.050 delinquent collection procedure revisions. Okay, we have a full panel.
Yeah, good evening, Ms. Mayor, councilors. Half the finance department is here tonight. We have Nisa McCarthy. She really stepped up with utility billing when we had a vacancy in our department. And so she's here to maybe answer a few questions if I can't. But I thank her so much for stepping up like that. It was really awesome of her. And then she trained Duncan Wallace here, who took the position as our utility billing specialist, and he's doing a great job. So tonight, we are recommending a change to how we collect past due balances, utilities. And while we were reviewing the current code, we saw some housekeeping matters that could also be cleaned up. And so we're recommending a few changes there as well. So our main change that we're asking for is how we handle notification of a pending shutoff, which the code says we hang a door hanger. So we want to change that particularly. And I'm going to back up, or not back up, but reverse, I guess, a little bit. I kind of wanted to go over the list of attachments with you that we have. This, of course, is our code that we'll be discussing in a few minutes. This outlines the process by which we go through to notify and communicate with our customers that they have a past due balance and the ramifications for not paying the utility bill. This is a utility bill that goes out. Some of our customers get it in the form of email. And this is the first time that you're notified that you have a past due balance, because you get your brand new bill. And then if it says previous balance, you know that you didn't pay the prior billing. And it does say your account is past due. Please pay the total past due amount to avoid further interruption of service. So this is the first time that we make you aware that you're past due. 13, 15 days later, if the reports rerun show that you still haven't paid, then you get a pink reminder letter in the mail. And
Does that always go by mail?
Yes, always mail. And then I just wanted to show you what a door hanger looks like. That's what gets hung on the door according to our code. And it does say, you know, that there'll be a $50 charge for this door hanger. And if you further don't pay your bill and we do shut the water off, there's a $150 charge for that. This is what we're proposing to send via email in lieu of the door hanger, and we'll get into that a little bit more thoroughly in a moment. We were looking at the shut off notice today, Nisa, you weren't here, but we want to change the name. It says service disconnect notice. We want to call it a shut off notice. That's what's in the code. We keep statistics on door hangers deployed and shut offs for non-payment. And that's this item G. And you can see July through February. I should say something else too. During the pandemic, we suspended hanging door hangers and shutting people off, and we haven't reverted back to the code yet. So tonight we're going to ask for a few things. And then we'll start doing that once the new code is adopted, if you all agree. But for that period, July through February, we would have hung 39 door hangers in total during that period. And we would have had 11 shut-offs. So it's not a huge problem that we have, but I think we do need practices in place to enforce collection, and I think that's important. And item H, this is a form we mailed out. I don't know, when was it? It was April 2022, just so we could get recent data and update our accounts, get emails. So we were pretty successful with that. So that's kind of an idea of how we go about collecting. So the reason this all came to be, it was suggested during the pandemic that maybe, we're not hanging door hangers now, we're not shutting people off. Maybe there's a better way than hanging a door hanger. I know our police department had some concerns about when we hang a door hanger. It may be there for a while and indicate that no one is home and invite possible break-ins. And so the police just found it problematic. And then Public Works was having to, go out, hang all these door hangers, take up staff time. And so Public Works suggested, why don't we email the door hanger instead? And so I thought, yeah, let's do that. And so that's why we're here tonight, to see if we can get municipal code change to affect that. And then I guess I can go on now and explain each item that we have here. In section 13-18-050. So we've struck some things out, we've added some things. The first item A is the billing cycle. We took out placed in the United States mail. We just didn't think it was relevant. My staff and I, we had many meetings going over this ordinance. And so I think we have come to a good place here. So we felt delivered on or after the first of each month would suffice, and make it more clear about when we're doing this. And we left in the next section, but we took out all utility bills become delinquent if not within 15 days of the established due dates. Well, as you see on our process here, we chose every Wednesday of the second Wednesday of every calendar month to, I'm getting ahead of myself. We mailed out the bills like 2 or 3 days after the end of the month, usually. So we don't want to put a date on that because, weekends occur and everything like that. So we took out on or after. We took out that we're putting it in the mail and such, placed in the mail, and I don't know, okay. Does this make sense, A?
Mhm.
Okay. Great. And then B, the amount is stated on the reminder notice. However, we don't list the type of charges like water, and storm drain. So since we aren't doing that right now, we took that out, and we always state the amount past due. So we added that in. We struck to avoid turn off procedures, and we want to stick with the words shut off to be consistent. So that takes care of B. Anybody have any questions about A or B? Okay, so we'll move on to C, the shut off notice. For those utility charges not paid by the due date stated on the reminder notice, a shut off notice shall be, and we're striking out hung on the front door, and we're putting in place emailed to the owner of the dwelling or place of business at least 48 hours prior to the scheduled actual shut off. The city shall maintain a record of all shut off notices indicating the time and email address. The notice was sent to The notice was sent to whom, by whom. The shut off notice shall state the amounts. And again, we're taking out the type of charges because we don't do that currently. State the amounts past due and the date and time such charges must be paid to avoid actual shut off. So it tells you, you know, the day you need to pay it and what's going to happen if you don't do that. And letter D, the actual shut off procedure, all accounts determined to be unpaid at least 48 hours after. Did I already say that one? Oh, seems similar. Okay. The 48 hours shall be counted on the business days only and shall not include holidays or weekends. On the day scheduled for shut off, daily payments will be reviewed to determine if any applicable payments have been received. We took out list because we have a report, but we issue service orders for each account that's on our list and then delivered to the appropriate crew members that will then shut off and lock those meters on the service order. So that's how that works. And E, water for non-payment, a charge of $50. So this discusses the fee involved. A charge of $50 will be added to each account that is emailed a shut off notice. Charge covers all costs associated with the delinquent collection process. And you'll see we struck out this whole item here at the end because we simply moved it to section F. So this part is relevant. We just thought it was more relevant under F where it talks about meter disconnection charge.
So Lori, I have a question on the $50. Is it as expensive to send an email as to put a shut off notice on the door? I mean, does it still need to be a $50 charge? I keep thinking as I read all this about if you were a person that was struggling with their bills and you had enough to pay the bill, but you didn't have enough to pay all of the additional charges. Does ever do any negotiating with people?
Yeah.
I mean,
We waive charges.
Every-
Yes, if somebody comes in and asks me, you know, if there's anything that I can do, yes, I definitely work with them and take into consideration what they're telling me.
We do have a payment plan option too.
Oh, you do? Okay, good. Okay.
Does that include the $150 to reconnect?
That was gonna be my next question.
But if we could waive an amount or
Is there a payment plan for that, or is there
there's a payment plan for
ability to waive all or part of it?
the payment plan would include the full amount of whatever's past due. And I think it's paid over a year, I think.
Yeah, we can stretch it to a year. We try to do 6 months, but we can stretch it to a year.
Next.
Okay, so I think I covered E. Anybody have any questions?
And just on that note, right now, we currently do not have anybody on a payment plan.
We have in the past, though.
And has that been successful in getting your money? Okay.
Okay, so if customer, I'm still in F. Customer or other party cuts the lock and turns the meter back on without prior approval of the city, the meter will be removed from the ground and the water service capped off. Water service shall not be reconnected until the customer has paid the past due utility charges.
Has that ever happened? Or is it just there?
I don't think so. Not under my watch.
Not while I've been here. We've been here. Well.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to G. In the event that utility customer fails to pay the utility charge in full. So if your balance is $100, you pay $50, we would prorate that $50 and apply a portion of that payment to each category of our utilities. Since our utilities are each different funds, we have to make sure it goes into the right area. And so that is what we're recommending. So what do you think?
I have a question. I'm just curious, you might not be able to answer this. In the past, when people have not paid the utility bill, do you have a sense of the reason why?
Not always. If they don't communicate with us, then we wouldn't know.
Have you ever had anyone tell you why they haven't?
It's been a while because we've had, a moratorium on
Oh, right.
doing this. So yeah, I can't distinctly remember every detail, but I know I've had people sitting down in my office and discussing their account with me. And we were trying to work out ways to get them up to date and current. Sorry, I can't remember specifics.
Okay. I just was wondering if it was a hardship thing or if it was just forgetfulness or blowing it off. I was just trying to figure out if there was any kind of pattern.
Or not getting the mail,
Something, yeah.
Right.
or a billing dispute. It was my question too.
I think most of the ones that I remember that are were hardship ones. Their work pattern ebb and flow. So they may have been off of work and they needed, to stretch those payments out. Most of the time, if people don't receive their statements, they're calling.
Right.
Or they've been out of town and it just got missed in the staff mail. They didn't know it. So most people are pretty responsive to the pink letter that comes out first.
So at this time, it's staff's recommendation to put in effect these changes, if you all agree,
I think,
and bring back an ordinance that you can consider for adoption.
yeah, I mean, they make sense to me, the changes, getting rid of the door tag, et cetera.
On Exhibit C, the utility bill. We've got highlighted on here the previous balance and the past due amount. Is that something you do with a highlighter?
No, it actually comes out red ink.
Comes out red ink.
I did the highlighting here.
Okay.
And we still use third company. To
Yeah.
bill.
Out of Bend, we use BMS.
I agree with Lisa. I think these changes make sense and I would advise staff to bring back those changes for adoption on May 2.
Anybody have any other questions? I appreciated all the information. I guess I just figured everybody paid their water bill and their electricity and stuff. And so and it seems like you have it very well organized and documented.
Oh, well, thank you.
Appreciate it,
Yeah, thank you.
that information.
Thank my staff.
I saw that Duncan's figured in there. Okay, great. So we'll see you back here in May.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have the scope of determination for McEwen Construction, appeal of planning commission decision to reverse an administrative decision to issue a redevelopment permit. And Robert is here.
Good evening. So moving into the staff report, this is the scope of review determination for the McEwen Construction appeal of planning commission decision to reverse an administrative decision to issue a development permit. The City of Cannon Beach Planning Commission affirmed the appeal of the administrative decision to approve a development permit number 2219 for the extension of a stormwater management system in the Forest Lawn Drive right-of-way adjacent to tax lot 51030 DA 04100 at its March 23rd, 2023 regularly scheduled meeting. Commission's findings are attached to this report. The commission was hopelessly deadlocked and unable to render a decision on the appeal. McEwen Construction, on behalf of the city, requested a review of the decision in an application dated April 3rd and received on the same date within 14 consecutive day appeal period from the date of the planning commission's 23rd hearing. The city council is to hold a scope of review meeting, which is this meeting tonight, to discuss as a non-public hearing item, the terms under which it wishes to review the matter according to section 1788-160 of the Cannon Beach Municipal Code. The city council shall use the application and request for review under the guidance of 1788-140 and 150 to inform their decision on whether to restrict the review to the record before the planning commission, limited to additional materials that feels are warranted de novo, or to remand the matter to the planning commission for additional consideration. The applicant has requested an on-the-record review, and the next available public hearing, meeting the notice requirements will be May 2nd.
So the reason that they were hopelessly deadlocked was because they had an even number of people and it was a 3-3 vote.
That is
So that's not really, in my mind, hopelessly deadlocked. It was they were missing a person, and had there been 7 people there, they would have made a decision. Is that correct?
The hopelessly deadlocked was their words.
I thought we could write it.
I know, but it isn't hopelessly deadlocked. It's that they had an even number of people. And they were a 3-3 decision. And if the entire planning commission had been there, it would not have been hopelessly deadlocked because there would have been an uneven number of people making the decision. So that's not my definition of hopelessly deadlocked. Because it was an incomplete planning commission.
I think if I recall the meeting, they really decided to be deadlocked to send it to us.
Well, that was my feeling too. And I really think it's a decision that they should be making. And the reason I think that is because they are really familiar with the materials, way more than most of us, unless we happened to be on the planning commission at that time. But it's pretty complicated. And it seemed to me that they all had a pretty good grasp of what the issues were. And had every member of the planning commission been there, they would have made a decision. I'm looking at Bill to see if he's thinking I'm, out of line or what.
Councilor Kerr, you're correct. There were 6 members at the planning commission hearing that made this decision and found that they were deadlocked. There was a discussion of holding on to the matter and letting the 7th person come in, and they decided that they wanted to make a decision that evening. If the council believes that this is a decision for the planning commission under 1788-163, the council has the right to remand the matter to the planning commission for additional consideration. So that is one of the outcomes you could come up with. I think the planning commission's thought was balancing having the full impact against the timeliness of making a decision. There is the 120-day deadline, as well as a likelihood that whatever decision they would make, one side or the other would probably appeal it to the council. And they thought, rather than extend the decision making out for another couple months, to get it to the city council. That was my read on what they were thinking. And so, this is the council's call. And to the extent the council wants to send it back to the planning commission, that is an option. But I would urge you to also balance it with the planning commission's apparent desire to get a timely decision out as well.
All right, but it's their job.
Understood.
It's not our job. I mean, it's their job. It's our job to hear an appeal if there is one. But it's their job to make that decision. It was a really very complex decision, actually, I think. And I think that I kind of feel like they took the easy way out in remanding it to just sending it off to us, when they really should have waited till they had their full planning commission there and made a decision with findings that we could review.
And my impression was that they really wanted us to weigh in on this.
But it's,
I'm sorry.
they're the land use board. I mean, they're the board who makes land use decisions anyway.
I just want to ask Robert a question. Robert, do you know where we are in the 120 days?
I'd have to look it up. I know we're getting close.
It's actually April 6th, so we're past the 120 days, but the city extended it when we canceled the planning commission meeting due to the snowstorm.
Right.
All right. And then,
So then it goes out another 30 days?
How does that work, Bill, as far as Jeff, from before Jeff left, we extended it, but I'm not sure how far the extension goes.
And I don't know, the applicant controls the deadline to the extent the applicant in this case is a city. I don't know what the decision was as far as how far the extension was. If it was originally April 6th and there was a cancellation of a hearing, typically you ask for an additional 30 days, which would take it to May 6th, but you know, the applicant can always extend that decision further as well.
And we would be hearing it May 2nd, is that right? Or what date would we be hearing it? We would be hearing it May 2nd. There is a planning commission meeting on, I believe, the 28th, 27th. So, yeah. So that's when they would hear it, I assume, because
I think there's some other parts to it, though. If you aren't going to make it, if your decision is to remand it to them, then the clock keeps going. And you don't make a decision on how to do the appeal, whether or not you're going to de novo or whatever. So they make a decision on the 27th, if that's possible. And then if it comes to you for an appeal, then you would be talking 20 days notice, plus whenever the time is to set the meeting for yourselves.
So you can,
but the applicant would be making if it was appealed, it would most likely be the applicant making the appeal. And so they would most likely be willing to extend the time period, wouldn't they? Because they want an appeal.
I would think, yeah, it could, because, but another nuance of this is that the appeal is not the city. It is McEwen Construction.
Right.
I think they're working on behalf, you know, it's the way they will handle this, I think, the way we want to handle it. I just wanted to make sure I understood that the natural order of the timing on this wouldn't be that you could get it on the 2nd. It would be forwarded to you, or somebody makes a decision within what, 14 days?
Yes, there's a 14-day appeal period.
And then there's 20 days notice before saying that we're going to do a public hearing. Well, you would have it at a workshop possibly, and then make the decision on how you're going to hear it. So it's going to be out potentially till June. And that's assuming that they can get an 8th item on that agenda, or have a second meeting very closely thereafter. But it wouldn't be, my only point is it wouldn't be ready on the 2nd.
It wouldn't be ready on May 2nd.
Yeah.
If there was an appeal, it would.
If there was an appeal, yes, I'm sorry.
But right. But we would hear it on the 2nd. No, I mean, if we accepted the review, de novo or on the record, either one,
You would not have had that yet.
wouldn't we hear that on May 2nd? Not the appeal.
if it's not remanded to
If
the,
it's not remanded to the planning commission and we
Oh, yeah.
accept review, wouldn't that be on May 2nd?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
my
that,
point. So, okay, well, I've given you my opinion. I think that they should make the decision and I think it's their purview. I think they're familiar with the issue. I think it's really complex and frankly, I think that it would take, well, okay, that's all.
Okay, others?
Well, maybe the tie-breaking vote would have changed that meeting, but I just recall.
It has to have, Gary, because if you don't have an even number, you can't have a tie.
somebody abstains.
Yes,
They have to abstain for a reason, though.
in this case, I believe that the votes were determined as an intention to be deadlocked, to send it to us. So it just feels odd that we're going to send it back.
I listened to the meeting, I'm sure you did too.
Yeah.
And it struck me that they were deadlocked. And because they were deadlocked, they thought, well, okay, let's just send it over to the council. And, you know, I don't know. And they were worried about the time clock and they were worried about running into the 120-day rule. So that sort of clinched it for them. That was my impression. Not that they thought they couldn't come up with a solution, because I think everyone on that planning commission had a definite point of view of how it should go. It's just that half of them had one and half of them had the other. You know, that was the problem.
Brandon, Nancy.
I don't have an opinion. I think we should probably just go ahead and look and if the planning commission had it forever, it seems, and they came to a deadlock where somebody was gone, who's to say it's not going to happen again? Somebody will be gone. I think the council should just take it and deal with it. But
It kind of would
I
be
can
nice for
talk
them to
about-
make the decision. But they didn't. So I'm fine hearing it on the record and we can be on the spot.
I guess my question more is, does anybody have a different opinion about how they want it to be heard if we do hear it
Well, I do.
versus?
Yeah, if we do hear it, then I think we have to open, I like the suggestion that was sent to us via email about, my goodness,
the
where is it?
extra
Yep, the extra information from Dana Cardwell. And she asked that the city provide a map showing the detailed overlay of the wetland buffer, wetland lot of record, tax lot boundaries and public right-of-way boundaries. I have to tell you, I have reviewed this packet over and over and over again, and I am still having problems with it. I don't feel like I've ever really understood it very well. And that really bothers me. And so I need to have more information in order to understand it. And I have consulted with other people, including an engineer, and I still am confused.
Is there a problem with being able to provide that information that's requested?
No, I think that can be provided.
Okay,
And before May 2nd. I mean, or a week before May 2nd.
Yeah, I think it'd be possible to obtain the wetland boundary information from the specialist that produced that particular layer and integrate that into our GIS information and produce that information. Yes.
Robert, do
Wouldn't,
you remember how many pages that packet was approximately?
I'd have to take another look.
Though.
It's long.
It's a big packet.
But there was a map in that packet. And what did it not show that you are hoping a new map will show?
All those things I just listed.
all that was in Dana Cardwell's letter. I think you're right. We do need to have that information.
Would that be the only information,
Well,
new information?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what would make it, really clear to me.
If you open it up to Ms. Cardwell, then anybody can submit anything.
that was,
If you don't know what you'll get.
I mean, we can't just ask for a certain
Right.
amount of new information.
Is that true, Bill? We can't limit the information. We can't specifically say what new information we would like. If we say
So-
we want any, it has to be everybody, everything.
So you can't limit who can submit new information. You can limit the issues on which you would want new information. If you
Okay.
look at, where is this? 1788, 8162, you can restrict the record to restrict the record made on decision being appealed, so just on the record, limited to the admission of additional evidence on such issues as a reviewing body determines necessary or de novo hearings on the merit. So you can say we want only information on the specific boundaries of the wetlands, wetland lot of record, all the information that you just identified. Or you can say we want information on, a particular issue, but you can't say only information from Ms. Cardwell or only information.
Right. Okay,
So-
from the city. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, well, I, in order to make a informed decision, I would need to see information from anyone who wants to provide it on the location of the wetland buffer, the wetland lot of record, the tax lot boundaries, and the public right-of-way boundaries.
Is that good enough list there, Bill?
That, this is what the council needs to decide, what the council needs in order to make its decision.
Right.
And that certainly is a very straightforward limitation on the issues, and that's fine. The question is whether that is enough for the council to make its decision. So, that's a call you need to make. But that limitation certainly works.
And another thing I would like, and this is something I wondered about a lot, and I'm not quite sure about, there seemed to be some issue amongst the planning commissioners about who owns the land over which the public right of way runs. And I've talked to several people about it and gotten different answers, that it's owned by the city, or it's owned by the landowner, or it's akin to an easement over the landowner's land. And I'd like to have the answer to that too, before we make a decision.
Okay. That ultimately turns on a legal question, and I can certainly provide that information to you to the best of my abilities. And
Okay.
I'm certain there may be people who have different opinions.
Okay.
So is there any other information any counselors would like to see?
No, that would satisfy me.
I think what the situation now seems to be is that anybody can submit anything that they want to. So it's not necessarily asking for what you're asking for. If this person has requested this information, then you're not going by the record. This is new to the record. So
Only on the subjects that we asked for. So if someone sitting in the audience today decided they want to give us a map that they made up, they could do it.
Right.
They can't give us anything else that's not the subject of the things we asked for.
Bill, is that
That
the way
is,
it works?
that is an option that's available to the council. They can, the two extremes are limited to the record, no new evidence, or de novo, anything comes in. But 1788 160 B2 allows the council to limit it to the admission of additional evidence on such issues as a reviewing body determines necessary. So it sounds as if Councilor Kerr requests limiting the information to two things. One, locating the boundaries of the various items that she had identified, and two, information related to the ownership of the forest lawn right of way.
Yes.
Yes.
That's, perfect.
Concern about whether or not we have enough time to get all that information organized.
A significant amount of the information as far as tax lots, right away and stuff like that, that already exists. We already have that information. Like I said, it'd be a matter of just simply getting the GIS layer for the wetland itself. That should be relatively straightforward. And then like I said, integrating that into our system, making, going through a few boring technical details, like making sure everything's on the same coordinate reference system. It won't be survey grade. It will be the best approximation we can produce, if that's sufficient.
And then, and then Bill would be able to give us the legal issue about ownership.
Mhm.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, does that give everyone enough direction? And that's a lot of reading material.
Yeah, set aside a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, Rob.
anything else anybody needs to?
So just, I'm sorry to be obtuse. What you're doing is saying you will take it. You will take the case now.
Yeah, I think
I'm not, but everyone else is.
If that was kind of the decision, so,
we compromised. You're bringing.
okay, no, I just wanted to make that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Bill.
Take
Yeah.
care.
Belfield?
See you on May 2nd.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so next we get to have our Cannon Beach Police Department annual report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I apologize. You won't have to make any decisions on this.
It's so nice, and we get to look at your
Your decision.
insignia. while we're here.
So this is something that I introduced when I came down here. It's something that Bob Gross had done in Seaside, and I always thought it was good for the community and the council to see what the police department does throughout the year. First front here, we have Lisa was talking with me about it before the meeting, and it's our new patches. We just implemented these within the last year. It's something we've talked about changing, and we've gotten lots of compliments on it. Last week, I was on Zoom for the meeting, but I was actually at the Chiefs Conference, and we have over 100 vendors there, and one of them was the vendor that had created it. And she said that's been very popular amongst other agencies. And she actually did a pink version because there's a new, I think it's the Pink Lemonade Project. They're trying to promote agencies to do it for the month of October for breast cancer awareness. And so we're looking into that as well. But yeah, a lot of work went into this. Lieutenant Wilbur had suggested it and came up with some ideas, and everybody added different ideas, as well as Bruce. And we're really happy with the outcome of it.
Yes, it's very beautiful.
It's so nice. Even the light from the lighthouse, I didn't
Yeah.
see that
I
from
wish
here.
it was still there, yeah.
Is there a bunny in there?
You know what? That's something we.
Oh, no.
We thought that'd be too controversial. The interesting thing, it's not on this patch, but one of my other patches, there's a weird thread that goes from around the elk to the rock that looks like he's on a leash. It's pretty interesting.
And then he could have a blue bag.
That's right. Yes. So next here is our mission, vision, values. This hasn't changed in the last 10 years. It was something my second year that I did a strategic planning process with the officers that we had then and the citizens. We had a full citizen meet and greet and asked them their opinions on what our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats were. And that's something actually in our goal for this year. And I'm starting that process, writing with each of the officers to see where we're at. Like I said, it's been 10 years. We met all of the goals that we had set and the community had set for us. And so we want to start back over. I think we only have 3 of the original employees that were here when I first started. So we've got a new crew, and I think it'll be a fun process. In the chief's update, just some different things I'll bring out of that. 5% increase in our activity and calls for service. As a reminder, we've increased our calls for service every year. We did decrease last year because with COVID in 2020, we had such an uptick with people coming and so many new rules that we had to enforce that we weren't used to enforcing, not keeping people off the swings. And so we just dealt with a lot of different things that year. So last year we didn't see a decrease because of that, but otherwise we've seen an increase in our activity. But our part 1 offenses increased by 20%, while our part 2 offenses saw an increase of 14%. And the common question I get is, what is part 1 and part 2? So brief explanation, Uniform Crime Reporting collects data about part 1 offenses in order to measure the level and scope of crime occurring throughout the nation. These offenses were chosen because they are serious crimes. They occur with regularity in all areas of the country, and they're likely to be reported to the police. I know in 2014, we had armed robbery down to Stephanie and the homicide here in part 1 skyrocketed. And so luckily we don't see that kind of an increase too often. The biggest increase in our part 1s was thefts, which went from 31 to 42. And there's no rhyme or reason when that happened. We did have a decrease in burglaries, which is a good thing. We're always happy about that. And it went from 7 to 2. In the statistics, you'll see in a little bit, there is an asterisk to the 2 because they weren't full-blown burglaries where stuff was taken, that they were attempts. So they tried to get in and somehow got spooked. And they didn't make entry into residence or business. Part two. Significant increase in vandalism, 31 to 56, and that's something we've talked about at previous meetings with the cruel mischief or graffiti that we're seeing throughout town, mostly in the restrooms. And I think that one thing that we've been pushing for the last couple of years is cameras in some of those essential areas where we can at least try to track, okay, this happened between this time and this time, and try to find out who was in the area when that happened. Also an increase in cases that we referred to class up behavioral health care. That's just something that we're seeing an increase in each year, and that continued this year. Then moving on to NIBRS, which is what we call, it's the Oregon National Incident-Based Reporting System. So not all agencies report all of their crimes to the National Incident System, which throws off the numbers for crimes that are occurring in certain areas. And so that may be why we have different areas where we're higher on things. It's because other agencies don't report that type of thing because they can't manage that. Some bigger cities don't get to deal with the citizens as we can on what the crime is as per, it's not reported the same. But this is something that we have always done, at least since I've been here, and we're still sustaining our 0% error rate for crime reporting, which is a pretty big deal because they keep up on us. And we usually have to be right on at the beginning of the month to report the last month's incidents. And so I know that's a headache at times for my officers because Val or Sylvia will tell them, I need your reports in so that I can do the crime reporting, and they're getting behind on reports. So alarm statistics, nothing really exciting here. Just we did have an increase in alarms, 120. I think last year it was 80 something alarms that we responded to, so an increase of 40. And that can be for a number of reasons, weather related, or just somebody didn't have the code when they went in late at night to do something. Did have an increase in our traffic warnings and citations and a decrease in motor vehicle accidents. So I can always remember Councillor Vetter on the council saying, I like that citation to warning ratio. But the increase of that and the decrease of accidents is a great correlation that we've seen. The education and enforcement reduces accidents, and that's what we like to see. Let's see. There's the statistics. You guys have a copy of that. Feel free to ask me any questions along the way. There were no other really significant increases. Our fugitive arrests went down. That's just people that have a warrant. It could be a state warrant, a city warrant, a federal warrant. But this year we only had 22. Some of the statistics here. We've gone over most of those. There were increases in our local security checks. And that's just something that goes along with the cruel mischiefs or burglaries. The officers have certain areas that they check throughout their shift multiple times throughout the city. So they're covering the whole city while they're out and about, not just sitting in one spot, running radar or running traffic. They get out of their cars and walk around certain areas, check doors. So those were increased this year. This was something new this year. We had talked about it and briefly went over it during the summer, but this was for the year, our contact data for visitors versus local. And that was an increase showing that 81% of the contacts we're making are with tourists. So out of towners.
I thought that was an interesting statistic, especially when you think about it in terms of the fire district as well, too. Yeah.
Pretty close.
Criminal investigations. This is Lieutenant Wilbur. He is our major crime team member. So he'll go out and work with one of the detectives from each of the agencies, which is really helpful. We didn't have that here locally when I first started, and so it would put a lot of burden on the certain office. But as you can remember, when we had the homicide here, we had all the detectives from the county as well as Portland FBI that helped us. And if was wrapped up for the most part in about 4 days, which is very nice. To have all that help. And so he helps out other agencies with homicides, manslaughters, Lynn Bias. That's a case for overdoses. If somebody overdoses on drugs, they do an investigation to where those drugs came from and who gave those drugs to that person. They should be held responsible for being a part in that. And so they do still see quite a few of those and also work in other significant crimes. Lieutenant Wilbur also has been helping the chief medical examiner in the county. We haven't filled the second position that would be a substitute for her when she's gone. So I think there's 3 or 4 detectives in the county that fill in for her when she's gone. And poor Chris doesn't like it because anytime she's off, he's getting calls at 3 a.m. and the other detectives don't get the calls, but he gets them. So he has to go out and investigate a death. And then in the last probably year and a half, Officer Thompson Keeper's been working closely with Lieutenant and able to help him with sex crimes and other cases where it's helpful to have a female there. And she's been picking up some training along the way, which is helpful too. Something that we hear a lot about, code enforcement. We had that position open from when Travis Handshoe left last year, all the way till March. We filled it with Luke. And he did a great job, stayed busy. He obviously left and is now a firefighter with Cannon Beach. But we do have that position open and we are getting very close on the background to hopefully being done. So we can fill that position. And I know that even last year with not having somebody on that position, we still took 176 cases. And it stays busy, but we're all picking up the slack while the position's open now.
Is there any statistics on how many of those code enforcement is by local people versus tourists?
It's a good question, but I can find out for you. No, I will look into it because that is a good question. Thinking of second homeowners that are keeping their or allowing their grass to grow too high, that type of thing. So also vacation rental type thing.
Right.
So yeah, I will find that out for you.
Thank you.
And then evidence. So that picture on the left, top left there is from last year, if you can remember. Covanta, which is the secure disposal area we go to in Salem, was closed for the last several years because of COVID. So we had to keep storing everything there. And we ended up having 268 pounds of unwanted prescriptions and things that people brought in that we have to keep in our evidence room until we can dispose of them. So between that and 208 closed narcotics, biological and weapons related evidence, we're able to get all those boxes out and open up some room in the evidence room. She is still very limited in what she can store in there. And again, Chris always talks about, if we ever unfortunately get another homicide, the room will be full because one whole wall is taken up with that. And we have to hang on to that for 99 years.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's knowing who committed the murder and
Yeah.
who was murdered and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. So this is a big one. Our almost 1,700 hours of training attended by our staff. And that's a hard juggle for, obviously, because we're having to fill shifts and cover for them while they're gone. This is something when I got hired here, I said I wanted to increase our training budget, and the council was very welcoming with that idea. And I think it's huge that we have that ability because we do have so many different ways that we have to keep our certifications. I think you have 1-year requirements, 3-year requirements, and 5-year requirements on what you have to have for certain things, whether it's your defense tactics, your firearms, your leadership training, DUI enforcement investigations, as well as wellness, mental health. And so it's all broken up. And so I've listed that of each of the officers, and Obviously, like when Corporal Bowman was the K-9 officer, he had to attend a certain amount of year of training for that. The detective gets quite a few different trainings he gets, and then the evidence technician and even Sylvia doing our records retention.
Are there most of those trainings on site?
It depends, it varies. The good thing is a lot of them are on Zoom now, which is helpful. And it depends on like the detective ones, it's good to have actually working with other detectives and building those relationships. But for the most part, we try to bring everything here, like the defense tactics and firearms we can do here locally. Specialized training is harder to do just because we can't get the instructors to come out to our rural area. People to attend it. So the cost is too high. This is our use of force. There were 17 documented use of force incidents last year. This was a decrease from last year, which is always a good thing. Everything remained about the same, although the higher percentage of subjects with some form of mental illness had gone up and increased. But other than that, there were no surprises. We did have one subject that was tased, and we do review, my lieutenant and I review any use of force within 24 hours to see what happened. Obviously, we usually get a call right when it happens, but we do review their written report. It has to be turned in the next day. And we do a review on it to make sure it was an appropriate use of force and make sure nobody was hurt and document everything that we actually would have to, we report each month as well to the national database.
I'm surprised that only 58% were male.
That's consistent though.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty consistent.
Oh,
Because I look at that each year just to see if there's much fluctuation. There's really not.
wow.
Yeah. Naughty. They're just being naughty.
Surprised it wasn't more.
I was trying to read into that too.
I was hoping Lisa wouldn't elaborate. Notice I did. Thank you.
I was just gonna say the night's still young.
You only know what was going on up here, though.
Yeah.
The rest of this is our different events that we had. One thing that I mentioned in my chief report that was a new thing was having the sandcastle back. It was good to get everybody down for that, but also having we had our national night out. This was our 7th one, and that's always a fun process. I think we've got it set up again for August 1st this year. That's one thing. You guys always have a council meeting, so we started around 5, and I think your meeting starts at 6. But if you're able to pop over, it's always good to have you. See you there.
And that's a national day, right? So you can't change.
Yeah,
Because we'll
first Tuesday of August. Yeah.
Okay, because we have the farmer's market.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like,
And little inclusion there of our bike aids last summer. We're starting that process up again for this year. And I think we're going to have 5 of them returning.
okay.
Our code
Wow.
enforcement applicant that's in the process was Daniel Pontier, and he was our senior parking aide, but looks like he'll be stepping away. So we'll fill those spots. And then we had our shop with a cop, which is always a lot of fun. This, along with the holiday coloring contest, is fun for us just to be on a different level with kids where they can start to learn a good side and not be in trouble. And they can see the human and that we can have fun with them. And the officers always have a blast. The breakfast, we have a breakfast set up where former lieutenant in Seaside always has one officer, usually the newest officer, lay on the floor in the restaurant, and he'll stand above them. And one of the kids will get a spray whipped cream into the officer's mouth. And
That's
they don't understand the stop thing. It's
That's that picture. There's
Yes.
I was wondering what was going on
No,
there.
it's always very common, and the kids love it. Yeah, there he is there.
Yeah, what is happening?
Yeah. And then the holiday coloring contest is always fun. The kids do a really good job, and it's fun watching. I let the officers decide who the winner is, and so there's some good arguments about why this person should be a winner. But It's fun. That said, the only thing I wanted to add is our goals for this year, which I did talk about, strategic planning, in that process. Implementing a bus token. Sure to have really good ideas. But oh, maybe it's back here. Make it more work than it needs to be. Tokens, the Sunset Empire has worked with us, and actually she got this idea from another agency. So when we have somebody in town that needs a bus to get somewhere else, the officers are always pulling their own money out of their pocket because they don't have any cash on hand. And I feel bad that they're doing that. And she did as well. So she's working with the Sunset Empire to get these tokens made so we can give those to people. They ride the bus, leave them with them, and then we pick them up from them, and it would be a much easier process. And more helpful for them as well. One of the other goals, filling our positions, which we're pretty close to with both of them, and working on retaining. That's something that we're constantly trying to do, is retaining the officers, because we really have a great team. And then the last is accreditation. I think I've talked about this before. We're wanting to make our agency accredited. It's a state accreditation, and that we'd be the first county on the North Coast, or the first city on the North Coast to be accredited. And it's really just working on making us a more professional department, holding us to the standards that state and national standards and best practices that they're going off of regarding high liability areas, personal management, and evidence handling is one of the biggest ones. So that's where we're at.
Do you, are you the strategic planning trainer?
Yeah, I usually do that. But I'm always open for ideas if you guys think of anything. But yeah, one thing I want to do probably in the fall, when things hopefully slow down, is try to set that up with a community meeting and get the public involved in as well.
Yeah.
Jason, why do, you mentioned retention, why do the officers leave this department? What reasons do they give?
You know, it usually varies. Right now, it's anything. And I mean, we're just seeing a huge decline. Just last week at the conference, you know, talking with chiefs from all over. It doesn't matter what agencies. I remember when I first started in law enforcement, there'd be 50 applicants for one job, and we had 5, I think, this last time that we had hired out, and it's just not as appealing as it was. The rules are changing significantly. Just in the 27 years I've been in law enforcement, the rules have changed so many different times where it's very hard to get people that want to stick with it. And so that's one of them. You know, it's really not pay. Officers know when they go into law enforcement that they're not going to be making millions of dollars, and it's more of a service thing. And so you're just not seeing that as well. But I think that having keeping the morale up, working on different ideas, new things, keeping things moving along, and including them in training, having other positions that they can do where they're not just doing the same thing year after year, you know, putting Jenny in a position where she can be working with the detective and training up for that, having a canine program, having DUI enforcement, where there's something that they can do besides just the same mundane things.
Do most of them who leave, do they go to larger departments?
It varies. Yeah. More activity is certainly one of the things that I think we've seen here when officers have left and stayed somewhere or stayed in law enforcement. It's another agency that has more activity. But yeah, it varies. I mean, right now we have a crew who's come to me and say, no, my wife would kill me if I left here. So we like that.
Not that we want them killed, no.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Is housing an issue?
It is, you know, especially if we have people coming in. That's why we really work on trying to find people in our own community when we're hiring, going out and talking to them. And I think that's something we talked about recently is putting folders together so we can have those with them. And, you know, if they're at the store and they see somebody that they think would be a good applicant, give them a folder that explains what the job is and has some information that they can think about it. But just going out and doing our own personal contacts with people that we're interested in having, because especially down here, it's a lot different than other agencies. We have to mold them to be a good fit for Cannon Beach. And we've had ones that this wasn't the spot for them.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes.
I think we're
Yeah.
very lucky to have you as our chief and
Very
our police officers, and
We're all happy to be here.
good. Keep it that way.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the memorandum of understanding with FEIU Local 503. Bruce,
What about dark sky?
did I skip some? No, no,
I have this next.
I'm on number 4.
Oh, dark skies fine.
Okay,
Skipping ahead.
Wishful thinking. Okay, we're on number 4.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just go ahead and give some background. City staff and the local union representatives from SEIU Local 503 have worked together to revise the existing public works certification program to better reflect the difference in responsibilities between the various public works groups that are required to hold Oregon Health Authority, or OHA, and Department of Environmental Quality, which is DEQ, certifications to run and operate the water and wastewater plants. The current revisions further improve the incentive tiers to better reflect competitive pay amongst other public works departments within the state of Oregon and create a succession path for all public works employees that supports career development and promotion opportunities within public works. In 2021, the council approved a 3-year contract with SEIU Local 503. The contract included a new certification program that created incentives for the employees required to obtain specific certifications within public works based on their department and roles and responsibilities. The current revisions further improve the incentive tiers to better reflect the competitive pay among other public works departments within the state of Oregon. And specifically, we're talking about if someone was to get a certification, you got a one-time bump of, maybe 3% or something, but that was just the one time. And then when there were, if I was whatever 3 and someone else was, well, I don't know if that's the exact example, but right now, there is not that much of a difference if I have a certification and you don't. It's like, why should I bother to go ahead and get the certification and have to get on rotation? So what we're doing is making the certifications something that's an increase in pay that you keep. And then the second certification is an additional 5%, and the third certification, so that we get people to the top of their field, because that was not happening. So the change recognizes the requirements of our OHA and DEQ permits for both our water and wastewater plants. Have employees trained and who possess the necessary skill set to run and operate both of our plants. Lastly, these changes create a succession path for all public work employees that supports career development and promotion opportunities within public works. And there's 2 parts to it. One, if you go over to attachment A, you can see that if somebody is the wastewater gets treatment and collection level 1, their base increases 5%. At level 2, it increases another 5. Level 3 increases another 5. And then on the next page, this is something that is not related necessarily to the same type of environmental certifications, but it has to do with, you probably heard the term commercial driver's license, or CDL. Well, CDL, we're lucky every once in a while we'll be able to hire somebody with a CDL. Only a couple of our people have CDLs, and we have a lot of equipment that requires CDLs. And so it doesn't necessarily make sense. It means for the few that can operate the equipment, they have to come off of their job to be able to work on another team's job, something like that. So we're saying that is the same as getting one of your certs, which would be a 5% increase in their pay, just because they're a CDL. And that's of value to us. And Mary, you got a question?
How extensive is CDL training?
CDL, yeah, I was getting to that. Right now, commercial driver's license, to find a company or somebody that would teach you to get your CDL is $30,000.
Jesus. Oh,
So this is not, we're doing the research to find a way to get that it's much less expensive and more affordable. But what we're weighing that against is equipment that we have that needs to have a CDL operator. And we only have a minimum. We just hired one. Then our newest person does have a CDL. And I think that there are other opportunities out there, but whether the $30,000 number comes from was, I think that the Sunset Empire was going to work with, I don't know, the highway department or something. And that's where they said what they found was 30,000. We think that sooner or later that's got to come down. But right now, we're okay the way that we're at. We prefer to have more flexibility, but our intent is to get more CDL operators, but not at 30,000 each. So those are so it's not just for the water and wastewater departments. There's certifications and things that other departments can get. Now, I want to say that we have Nisa McCarthy here tonight, and she is the president of the local. And we also have Mike Brown, who has been president in the past, but is on the they were both part of this negotiation. And he is our wastewater 3. And I think I told you, I gave you an example one time that there was like 3 requirements for wastewater 3s, and there were 2 wastewater 3s. And the competition got a little fierce. And that was when it's like, well, we're being silly if we don't recognize what everybody else recognizes, that there's a value in what we've taught our people, and we're not recognizing it. So, but they were all excellent in working with us and being able to come up with this plan, and as was Karen Labonte. So thank you, everybody.
Do you guys have anything you'd like to add?
Sorry, say again.
Anything you'd like to add to Bruce's presentation?
Other than I just think this sets the city of Cannon Beach apart a bit from other areas within the state. I think it's going to go a long way for us to be able to attract and retain really good qualified employees that want to stay around. And it gives, more than anything, gives our employees a succession path to hopefully come in and replace Trevor and I one day. We should be grooming our guys to come from the field and fill those positions instead of hiring another me off of the street. I think you've done a great job working together to put that together.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, I'm very much in support of this.
Good.
I'd like to see that come before us in May.
Good.
That's completely doable, right?
Yeah.
I have a question about the language here on both in the water and wastewater employees. It says on this it says, for example, if an employee has treatment and collection certifications at level 1 and then achieves the level 2 treatment certification, the employee is eligible for the level 1 incentive pay, not the level 2.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. It didn't make sense to me.
Got level 2, why aren't they eligible for level 2 pay?
Yeah, I read it as.
Ashley, are you on the line?
Ashley's not.
I think Karen and somebody's. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. On the wastewater side, for example, there's 2 parts of our wastewater system. There's a collection system and then there's a treatment system. So you have to have certification on both sides.
Okay.
So we're just trying to encourage the operators to seek certifications in both fields, not just get one certification to run a treatment plant and then not focus on the collection system. So we're trying to get operators first in both that. And also that is how it works in the water system. They've got a distribution system and a treatment system there too.
Okay, so give me an example of how this works then in terms of the certification. Level 1 is level 1 a certain side of that 2-sided. Okay, so you get level 1, and you get do you get an increase in pay then?
Nope.
Okay, you have to get the level 2.
No, we're trying to get them level 1 in collection and in treatment,
Okay,
both halves of that to make
to get the increase in pay.
correct.
Okay,
So
I
each
understand.
of those levels, you have those two parts that you have to achieve
Okay,
at that said level, whether it's 1, 2, or 3.
okay.
You gotta have those two parts to get your incentive.
So you get the 2 parts in level 1. Then the next time you get a level 2, but maybe you only get one of the level 2. Then you don't get the pay. You have to wait to get the second part of that level 2. Okay, that makes sense.
Mike has both his parts in level 1. He goes to take his collections test at the level 2. He doesn't get an incentive until he does the other half of level 2, then he gets this incentive.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's the way it is at each level.
Okay.
There's a theme here, and it's something that Karen's been working on for probably about a year or two. And we have something called the rotation, and nobody loves the rotation because you can't leave town. It's, you can't have a beer or anything. And right, if you don't have many people that are on rotation, or actually, right now, I think we still do have 2 rotations. There's one for people that know water and the other one people pay do the wastewater. And if there's only 3 people in each of those teams, and there's only 1 or 2 of them can go ahead and do the rotation, they're doing it a lot. So what Karen wanted to do is get people that had both certifications and then could take any call. If it's a water call, a wastewater call, could take those calls. And that way more people get into the rotation and it's less of a hassle. And in fact, it was a disincentive to a lot of people. Your weekends, you couldn't count on the weekends. So there's kind of another part of this that I think was a great concept, and it gets us on the start now.
And how lengthy is that training?
You mean the individual levels or to achieve all their cert levels?
Each individual level?
Well, DEQ and OHA both have increments. They require you to have X amount of on-the-job training as well as instructional or book training, if you will, before you get to your next level. But realistically, you could probably get all levels of your certs within, I'd say, 3 to 4 years of being here if you really put your focus on it.
And are those online training? I mean,
Some of it is.
some of it is.
We have manuals that can be ordered and studied. Some of it is online, and then you go to a test center to actually take the test on a computer, and it's a pass or fail type of a test. And the tests cost money. So obviously the objective is to be prepared when you go take the test so that you don't have to take it several times. But people being hired from the street have never been put through something like that. Oftentimes the first time they go in is somewhat of a dry run. But the idea, again, how we work together on this is to get as many employees as versed in all aspects of public works as possible. Because at the end of the day, when we have a real emergency, I probably won't have my total team here. And so the more they know about the community and public works and our infrastructure, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, okay.
Now, your question in A, I read it as if you hire someone with level 1, and then they achieve level 2, you're not paying them for level 1 and level 2. Is that what that says?
When they come in with level 1, their pay would be recognized. That level 1 would be recognized. So it doesn't matter if they hired in with it already. If they possess that level of expertise, we're recognizing that with the incentive.
But they would have to have both.
And they have to have both levels of
Right.
no matter what, any tier.
So there's a level that we hire in, a step that we would hire in normally, but this person would get 5% above that.
And
If they had both.
that is if another city were to see an opening in Cannon Beach and they have some of those skills, we benefit from that, right? We should recognize that level of skill and incent them for it. But if they haven't reached the top tier, we should encourage them to get that. So you'd want to do it either way, whether we're trading or we see it somewhere else. I think they should recognize that.
Because it's hard to bring somebody in here because of the cost of housing, there's a lot of poaching that goes on between communities. And I would like to keep us out of that discussion. We have a great team.
If you hire somebody from out of state, do we recognize their certification from another state or?
You know, that's a good question. As far as I'm aware, in our Pacific Northwest, those are pretty universal. I would have to see. I think for this whole state of Oregon it would be. I mean, DEQ and OHA is a statewide.
Right.
But if we hired from Washington or Carolina or New York or whatnot, we have to look and see if those certs are comparable to what our DEQ and OHA. I would think they will. There's different types of plants. That's why when the guys go for testing, they're having to study for a lot of things that don't even apply to our plant because there's different types of wastewater and water plants across the country.
But that is a question that we need to investigate. Good point.
Okay, okay.
So we'll be happy.
No.
We'll be bringing you I guess this is done with just the MOU. So we'll have a vote on it at some point.
May 2nd.
Yes.
We're doing everything.
Yep.
Including. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have a discussion on the dark sky designation. Bruce,
Tim,
any illuminating insight?
no one has ever tied that to my name. Those words don't run together in a sentence.
It's a yes or no answer.
The city of Cannon Beach began looking at zoning ordinance amendments related to exterior lighting 2013, directing the Planning Commission and the Design Review Board to review the recently adopted City of Seaside Ordinance and the International Dark Sky Association Model Ordinance. The City Council eventually adopted the ordinance amending the Design Review CBMC 17.42 and General Requirements and Regulations, CBMC Municipal Code, that is, 17.90, to provide additional protections for residential commercial lighting. The council made minor edits to that language in 2017 regarding the lumens and ratings table. And under the design review exterior standard lighting standards. But from a review of the record, there appears no evidence the city has sought a dark sky lighting designation. The February work session, council discussed researching IDA dark sky community designation and spreading awareness of the code requirements. The March issue of the Cannon Beach Community Bulletin contained information on residential lighting, as well as new advertisement about the code complaint online form. Additional flyers, both topics will be created and distributed on Facebook, city building inserts, post office, and the Cannon Beach Gazette. The dark sky code was brought up at a recent code audit joint work session with council and the Planning Commission. Researching the steps to become dark sky compliant could be tasks to the Planning Commission. And the recommendation is for council to provide staff direction to move forward. Included in the materials is a lot of the information that we have available, and also that the International Dark Sky Association provides on their website.
Well, Eric brought up the language about the wattage and lumens and
Right.
suggested that this might be out of date.
Mhm.
Is that something that the city can check?
Sure.
Yeah, I
And
it's like it is, I don't know.
It was in Jeff's list. He was making a list of changes he wanted to make in the ordinance just because what we measure them with isn't the same as what's in the ordinance. And so it makes it really confusing.
Yeah.
random here that we pretty much have to go out there with the slider rule to figure out what the lighting is. It
Yeah.
would be good to have it all on the same page.
Yeah, yeah.
So that means you need new equipment.
Yeah, no. equipment-
The helicopter will.
Yes, yes, change the wording.
We need more, different
It
words.
doesn't match the code.
Right.
Well, with a meter that doesn't measure that.
Right. So that's possible to do? Okay.
And then I got a message from Diana and Rex Amos have been real involved
Yep.
in this dark sky. They weren't able to either be on Zoom tonight or come to the meeting. But Rex wanted to point out some of the spotlighted standing signs, such as the one for the Haystack Rock and the one for Pacific Coast Brewery. Not only do they shine up, they are annoying to drivers and pedestrians. This isn't a compliance issue since they are allowed by the city's design requirements. These signs would be more effectively lit from above. It seems the city would be doing everyone a favor by requiring that standalone signs be lit from above. And then he also asked that we put something in the ordinance about the color of light. So that's,
Oh, yeah, that's a big thing.
yeah. And Carl Marlantes was talking to me about this yesterday, and he said that he would like to see the lights over the beach turned off.
Oh, that's standard in Florida right now with the turtles.
Well,
If you-
I'm not in Florida, I'm in.
Don't understand, but it's like I'm saying is they're strict that if you're in a hotel room, they expect you to close your curtains at night, not leave them open. It would be any kind of an attraction to a turtle to come, hey, come this way.
But I guess I'm talking about Cannon Beach.
I understand.
So whether or not we should turn the lights that are shining onto the beach off.
Well, I guess I'm still not sure what is the actual difference between our ordinance and one that is a true IDA ordinance, acceptable ordinance. Where would the changes have to be made?
I think that's part of what we were suggesting, that somebody like the planning commission could go through and decide which standards they wanted to use or recommend using, and then bringing that to you.
Yeah, because I myself would love it if we were a dark sky community and if we, followed the IDA's recommendations. So I think that's a great idea. I don't know what it entails at this point.
Yeah, it would be that kind of a comparison.
Yeah,
And I would also assume that the dark sky documentation would be the most recent information, and that it would require us, as Jason had said, to switch our equipment to measure what they measure.
yeah.
I think since we took the wetlands appeal,
I knew somebody was gonna say
I
that.
think we should ask the planning commission to do the deeper dive on this and come back with some
I
recommendations.
like that idea. I think that's a great
So
idea.
in the meantime, we have an ordinance.
Mhm.
We need to get different equipment to measure whether or not we're
Yeah.
following that ordinance.
We're able to figure it out.
No,
Yeah.
you are.
What we
It's the
have.
wording that's the problem, right? It's the wording, not the equipment. That's the problem.
Yes,
So we need to change the wording,
what we can measure.
right? And then we're asking the planning commission to look at the ID, to qualify for the IDE.
What we'd have to
Right.
do.
The code
Yeah, what
changes we need. to-
Okay,
I don't always recommend that if there's an authority like the IDA or others, that we match them exactly. Because sometimes there are restrictions that don't necessarily apply to us,
Right.
or that we just think, people should be able to see, have something a little bit more brighter in their driveway than what they would allow. So I think you take the best from them.
personalized
Yeah.
to Canopy.
Yes.
I think that's what was done originally.
Right, I think that we ought to see if it's possible. I mean, I don't know, because I don't know what the differences are.
Mhm.
And see if it's possible for us to become a dark sky city. That's what I'd like to see,
Mhm.
but I don't know. I mean, I can't say anything at this point because I don't know what it means yet.
Well, I think that's perfectly reasonable to give direction to the planning commission on just that subject.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
And with this, can we not make it a top priority? Because right now, everything is a top priority.
But I think we need to set it,
Maybe set a schedule, sure, like, you know, maybe,
that we'd like this taken care of, or started the process in.
Start the process in terms, well, the planning commission doesn't have to worry about the wetlands thing, so they have time.
Be respectful and kind.
you also have the code review that we're accelerating. And, you know, it's just, there's so much that you can get done. And so I see the priority being the code audit. Especially since we're accelerating and putting more components in it.
Right.
So.
That was my thoughts.
I don't, can it be that we try to have this completed by fall? Not started, but completed by fall?
By the end of, so by December, when winter starts.
So I'm thinking September, October.
Oh, okay. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
okay. I'd like to see it sooner rather than later, but
I'd rather see wetlands addressed and some
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah, I mean, you got so much.
We're going to have a lot of work to do with the code.
Code audit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully
And this-
that would provide a template to maybe.
Yeah.
Get this in there.
Yeah, and we can talk to Marcy on a way to set that up and say, this is where your information regarding the IDA would be in the code,
Right.
in our code, as opposed to trying to figure it out after.
Right, it should be done in conjunction with the code
Yeah.
audit, but probably not the number one priority.
Right.
You know, put it on the path.
Yeah. Because we do have code.
Okay, enough direction.
Fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have a discussion on naming city-owned property for individuals.
Ready?
Yep.
Sons of the American Legion, Cannon Beach Post, reached out to city staff asking for approval to dedicate the First Street Bridge during this year's annual veteran ceremony. The dedication would rename the bridge in honor of Brigadier General James B. Thayer, in honor of his service to our community and to our country. In June of 2005, the city approved an updated commemorative bench, tree, and donation program. That program was in place until October 2016, when we approved a commemorative plaque policy. The plaque policy was created by the Parks and Community Services Committee, featuring plaques at the bandstand. And in the bandstand, it is on the northwest corner is where that's located. The bridge dedication does not fall under the current commemorative plaque policy, and the city does not have a policy for naming city facilities. As there is currently no mechanism in place to move forward, council needs to determine if they want to create a naming policy. Should a policy be created, it will provide a path to complete this request.
Thought we already said we wanted to develop a policy.
yeah,
I think
did.
we said we know there's a need to develop a policy.
We didn't walk away with the idea that we were supposed to be pulling together a policy yet.
Well, I think we definitely need one.
I have a different viewpoint.
Okay,
And that is that I feel that as a city, we should be able to decide whether or not we want to name a street, a bridge, anything else, and treat it as a standalone decision. And I agree with the fact that we can have a policy if we want to, but I certainly think that's the city's right to be able to name something if they so choose by a decision of the council. And that may be alone my views, but I just wanted to make that said because it doesn't seem to go along with what's included here in the staff.
That's a pretty normal function.
So if you have a council who decides they want to name a street, you know, ABC Street, and then the next council comes along and decides they don't like that and they want to rename it, you know,
XYZ.
PBS Street, what, I don't understand how it would work. I mean, it's just sort of at the whim of the council, how you name streets and bridges.
You could call it a whim. I tend to think that because the council made the decision, perhaps it can have a little more weight and other councils would be respectful of.
And at what point do you not rename something because you want to show respect? You know what I mean?
I don't know. Those are decisions that councils are able to make. And no, it's a deliberative body and they can take public comment. They can take any number of things into consideration because cities change the names of streets and they change the names of buildings all the time. It's just done that way.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
One of the things is that you need to consider is that what Commissioner Kerr was talking about is a possibility because one council can't do something and then another council can't undo it. And I forgot the term for it.
They can't.
They can't. So for example, if there was a policy that was already set, you could come in and change that policy.
Right.
And so if your policy is that you can do this just based on a decision of the council, then somebody else comes in, they could undo that. If we make a decision to name, you know, the street, I'll go XYZ. I don't think XYZ was used, but to do XYZ and change the name that you gave it, they could probably do that. So I don't know if you can bind, I think it is the subsequent councils with your decisions. I think that's a given.
Well, I guess I just feel like I know there's there's a lot of public support for this name change. There's also a lot of people who don't feel like it's appropriate. And so that's what concerns me, because if we don't have a policy, then we are, you know, sort of making an arbitrary decision based on one group's desires against another group's. And there's not a reason for it. I mean, there's not like that it works better for the city or it's comports with the state law or none of that. It's just what we feel like doing. And that kind of bothers me a little bit. I just feel like I think if we had a set way of doing it, you know, and I'm not sure what that would be, but I'd love to hear ideas on what would be a good way of doing that, a good policy. I know that a lot of jurisdictions do it just by the council. I know that's true. And researched that and saw that happens in a lot of jurisdictions. But it makes me uncomfortable. I know that.
Well, I think one advantage of having a policy is then they become more objective decisions rather than subjective.
Yeah.
And there's so many people in this community that deserve to have recognition. And that's why I think of having a policy with some established guidelines would be beneficial in every council being able to make a good objective decision. And
Yeah, I agree. I think we should have a policy.
Take the emotions out of it.
I think we should have a policy, even if a later council comes and changes the policy, at least it would guide us.
Right.
In whatever decision we make. And I think there's lots of ways to honor people and commemorate people other than naming a facility or a street or a park after them. So it feels like we need to be looking at this. And I guess I would like to see parks revisit this. With their past work that they have done with the plaque. It's been how many years
A lot.
that
We spent, being on that committee, we spent a long time talking about it.
and right now it's a series of plaques that nobody sees unless you're a drummer in the band.
That's right. No, I didn't even know it existed.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
I think we have a potential new opportunity with the grade school renovation.
Yeah.
And I just think here again, I think we kind of need somebody with a deeper dive that looks at this seriously and comes and makes some recommendations.
Yeah, I do too.
I agree. I agree.
Brandon, would you both be okay with looking at a policy?
I'm absolutely, I just wanted to make my views known because, one, I'm supportive of the petition for the bridge naming. And I want to make that known. But I'm also in support of a council being able to do, something that they see as worthwhile. But I'm also willing to, look at what you're asking. Come up with a policy.
Now Seaside has a plaque on, I think, their Second Street Bridge that again is something similar to this. So this doesn't mean that we
Named
can't.
for a person, or is it, or the veterans?
Maybe they called it Veterans.
Yeah, I think it's called
Bridge.
veterans. Yeah.
But there is a specific plaque,
Mhm.
I think there.
And that's where
so
they have their Pearl Harbor.
it's not like you can't have a really nice plaque or memorial commemoration there without renaming the bridge.
Right.
Uh,
Oh,
But I don't know.
that's
I don't
good
think
point.
we should try to solve it.
Well, maybe we should look at other, we could each take it, if we have the time to just read up on what other jurisdictions do. I'm curious to see more of how they do it, or what kind of policies they might have, so we could see if any of those appeal to us, or if they work for us or work for this town.
Bruce?
I think parks, it would be nice if parks could do it.
That's what I was thinking.
Even better.
Very busy. Parks is busy too, but not like you are.
Okay,
So I would suggest that you give it to Parks so that you
Great.
have time to
that's fine.
focus on your top priorities.
And yeah, revisit the whole thing, the naming, the plaque.
The plaques in the bandstand, the whole thing, yeah. And then not take any action on this at this time. Until there's a policy in place.
Mhm.
On the bridge, I mean.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Permission to address the council?
Will you be kind and respectful?
Of course I will.
Okay.
I just wanted to emphasize that
First off, your name and.
Mark Newsom, 163 West Jefferson. I wanted to emphasize how deep this has gotten over the several months or years that I started this project before COVID. And then it was just a building. And when I first came to find out about this thing, and I through that mail slot over there, I got an application for one of those things like where the drummer sits. And I'm like, this is, the General Thayer story is way bigger than where the drummer sits. And so after a couple of years, I came to my wife and I were very much involved with the elections, and we saw a lot of you guys on stage at the Coaster Theater, and all of a sudden you guys became people and humans and passionate people that love Cannon Beach just like us. And as I said, I think the last time, a few years ago when we left the bridge during our ceremony, one of the Thayers, or maybe Nancy Teagle is sitting behind me, said, boy, we ought to name this, it would be cool if they named this after the general, because he never missed one of those events. So we started digging into the Thayer brothers. They don't talk about their dad. You got to dig into it. Well, they've raised millions of dollars for the Oregon Veterans Museum, who wanted to name it after their dad, and they said no, because they didn't want to steal the other veterans' valor. So it's not an ego thing for these guys. They're not trying to get their name put on it. It's something they mentioned. And as members of the Cannon Beach Legion, it's something that's important to us, because the ceremony on Memorial Day is very sacred to a lot of us. My wife, who's sitting behind me, started going there when her mother was a veteran, and she's been to him since she was a little girl. So it's not like we're penalizing. Carl Melantis mentioned to me 4 or 5 other people, and I've got their names written down, but
It was over 3 minutes.
okay, but John Schwabe and then Bud Stevens are also medal holders and stuff and like that. But so we went to the museum, and we've got a pledge from Cannon Beach donors that'll give us the funds that we can put these people's name. So we've opened this door to where we can honor the John Swabes and the Bud Stevens, because we're going to be able to donate money to the museum and get wall space there and honor each one. So it's going to blow up. And the other thing is, and I'll finish, only 2.3 people under 30 years old are aware of what the Holocaust is. They have no idea. The QR code that we're going to put on all these, that we're going to put all over town, are going to lead you to the museum. We'll get them hundreds of hits. It'll lead them to either the Holocaust, or it'll lead it to the General Thayer. So we're educating the young, and we're teaching people about something that everyone in this generation is denying. And you guys, it would be a shame if you guys, we turn down this opportunity to share this information. And General Thayer is he's just the tip of the iceberg on this deal. But it's really a lot bigger than just one guy.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why can't all of that happen if the bridge isn't renamed the Brigadier General Thayer Bridge? Won't the stuff?
Because we need.
Let me finish my question. Won't the things still happen at the Historical Museum? Won't there still be those cards, handed out with a Q code? Won't all those educational opportunities still take place?
The answer is, you have to prompt people. Who is this guy? Who's General James B. Thayer? When they drive across that bridge, it's going to trigger either a memory for people like myself, who's my dad was in World War II, or it's going to trigger some sort of inquisition. Who is that guy? Or that reminds me of this. If nobody's going to pick this up when it's sitting next to a thing about float trips or fishing trips, but when we have the guy's name, it's going to trigger inquiry.
Well,
and he's if you read he's in our own backyard, and we have history by the tail right here in our own backyard, and we're turning our back on it if we don't.
I don't think anybody on this council is saying that they don't think that he is an incredible hero and a really incredible member of the community. I don't think anybody is even thinking that. I think
worth telling.
Huh?
It's a story worth telling.
Yes. All we're thinking about.
Help me share the story. Help me. I'm asking all of you to help me share that story, because in my 2 years of this project, it's mind-boggling, because nobody tells you that they're a veteran. I found out that Yuli Pardini, who lives across the street from me, is a Korean veteran, because he's seen this packet. Every day I talk to somebody that says, well, I'm a veteran, or I did this. The other night, we had a submarine captain in here at our last presentation that we never even knew the guy served. But when he read this thing, I mean, it's amazing the reaction and the passion that you get, because nobody tells you they're a veteran until you, and it's unbelievable. But we got a chance to kind of honor these folks. That's all. And it's just putting his name on the bridge. It's just going to make people ask questions. And when people ask questions, then they get answers. My 3 minutes is up. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, yes, I think even more important.
That it goes to the Parks Committee.
We
for-
want to be able to honor people, and a little plaque in the bandstand isn't
no.
qualifying. So
I agree. I mean, yeah.
So
I remember
please make sure when it does appear on a Parks Committee agenda that you guys have a chance to present your ideas. That's how we're going to get something changed. Thank you. Okay, everybody. Okay, we're on to number 7. Do we want to take a break? First,
So do we want to direct, do you feel like when the council was directed to do something?
Kind of. But to go to
to refer it to the
Parks Department,
and
the Parks
Committee, Parks and Communities.
and to ask for a policy.
for a policy, not the question of whether or not that particular bridge at this, we don't have that we want, that the council would like to see a policy
Yes.
for renaming things,
Yes.
City-owned property.
city-owned property that,
I think also revisiting the commemorative plaque thing.
right,
in
I
general.
agree with that, because that,
History of the commemorative plaque. I think the people got over having benches with flax names and all those things.
And rocks and.
And yeah,
We were, yeah.
yeah. And so I think that that's where that came from. Well, we'll put them up, we'll have them over there, but we still welcome the bench and we still, all those things.
but I think that there's a better, more visible place than in the back of the bandstand. For example, if we do renovate the elementary school, there can be pavers with people's names like they do in a lot of jurisdictions, or Whale Park. Someone came up with that idea. I think that was Gary, Whale Park, or somebody did. Whale Park having some kind of plaques there somewhere more visible, because the bandstand, it just looked like a weird, like little plaque graveyard to me.
Yeah.
Weird,
Yes.
something you can see, but the issue of whether or not to name the bridge is not what we're asking parks to do. We're asking them to come up with a policy, a general policy for naming
City
public.
property.
So it includes something as big as the bridge.
It would include something as big as the bridge, right?
So you have something to work with.
But
Does anybody know how Les Shirley Park was named?
No, I thought about that the other day.
Yeah.
I know.
But I was that. was
Named
sure.
after Legion Air.
It was Legion property, so I understand this.
Yeah.
It was Legion property. They said they would donate it to the city if the city would commemorate West Shirley.
Oh,
That was what some of the folks I've been talking to about this issue told me.
how long?
I don't know.
A long time ago.
Yeah, it was, I think, I want to say the late 70s or early 80s, something. 80s.
But I mean, the idea of the display at the, all that, that's a great idea. And I don't think that a 30-something going over the bridge is going to all of a sudden run to the museum because they see a general's name on the bridge. I just don't. I don't think that's how people's minds work, but I think it's a great idea to have that display. I hope they do it. I really hope so.
Okay. So do we want to take a break before number 7 on the agenda, or do you want to just keep going?
No, let's just get it done.
Just get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to take very long. Okay, so we're going to have a discussion about how we're going to operate the Cannon Beach Elementary Rejuvenation Project.
Bruce, do you know how they do it in Seaside? operate their convention center?
They have a whole staff.
Yes.
How do
They have significant revenue source that comes in and they have to balance their budget. Most of the places that we've looked at so far, there is some sort of a general fund subsidy. I don't know if that's the case in Seaside. The one that blew me away is the budget for Bend Recreation District is 83 million and they take in 81 million. I don't think we're quite in that category, but when I've done this research before, for somebody to pay for themselves, like that kind of a facility or a recreation department, you really need a golf course. That's enough of a revenue generator to cover the shortfalls for other things. I'm sorry, Nancy, I just want to finish.
This convention center runs on TLTs.
Right.
I mean, they also bring in income
Yes,
from home
yeah.
conventions.
Yeah.
But
That's
They
correct.
have an advisory committee.
what's that?
They have an advisory committee.
Do they?
Yes.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way Seaside works is there's a visitor and convention bureau at the top,
Mhm.
and then it splits off
Oh,
into
you're talking about. the-
convention
yeah.
center with a committee and marketing with a tourism advisory committee.
Is that bureau run by the city or is it a nonprofit or is it separate?
The
from the-
committee's advisory. So officially, the city has ultimate decision-making.
Okay. And
And the city hires the director.
And the city runs the information center.
okay,
So
and they have an amazing occupancy.
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea. I mean, when I heard, I can't remember what the statistic it was, but I was like flabbergasted.
Well, and they just went through a huge expansion project.
Yeah, really.
The reason they went through the expansion project was because they were too small to attract large conventions and too big to attract, well, actually, they said that the reason they went through it was because the smaller, there weren't so many smaller conventions anymore. And they were looking, they were designed originally for a smaller convention kind of situation, but there weren't that many out there for them to be able to make money off of. So that's why they expanded it to go to larger convention sizes.
But also in their expansion, they developed, I mean, I look at it like the gym is the downstairs part of this is my analogy here. The gym is like the downstairs of the convention
Mhm.
center. And then the classrooms are what's upstairs.
Yeah, they have the breakout rooms and then they have the
Right.
room, yeah.
Yep.
They have actually, the big ballroom and then they have, right next to it, they have a smaller ballroom. It's not a ballroom, but it's not a breakout room. It's, in between the two for the
Okay.
size. And then they have the breakout rooms up above and on the side.
And they have a full kitchen.
Yeah. But they have about at least 3 or 4 or 5 people staff. I mean, the staff is, and it's full time. And they have a convention that they have one person goes out and seeks conventions. That's the job, is just to go out and start attracting people to the convention center. And that's their job.
That's a much bigger
Right.
thing than we're.
Operation that we're talking
than
about.
we envision, yeah.
As I mentioned in this information, I have a very strong feeling that it's going to be an outside agency or some sort of a committee, 501c3 or whatever, that they have it all the way through. And it's not something that the city is kind of filling the gaps and all those kind of things, because we can't plan around that. So my preference is that if it's a city function, we go ahead and we have it run as a city function. And if it's going to be a 501c3, they hire, who they want to have do that. So that would be my preference in any decision that's made.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm just curious. What is your preference?
I'm a control freak. Thanks, Jim. A lot of people didn't know it till you just could. But so if we are going to be responsible, if I'm going to be responsible for it, then I want to have control over the items that would make it successful or not successful. And I especially have an interest, since we're going through all this, to pull it together. That I would like to be able to be involved with it later on. But if the council decides to do something and have it a different way, we'll support it any way that we can. And something just came to my mind and I'm sorry, I can't. Oh, and if there is a committee that is going to do it, and if it's advisory, please have it be advisory to the council and not to staff.
Yeah.
Because, we'll do what we think is right, but if we're going to take direction from someone else, I would like it to be you.
Right.
And so you talk to them, they decide what, and then you provide direction to staff.
So right now, the RV park is city-owned.
Yep.
And managed by Escape Lodging,
Yes.
and they don't. There's no committee.
No.
And how successful is that?
I think that works. They are in the hospitality business, and so it's not a reach for them to handle that. It's not a committee when it's budget time. We go and we generally go to their shop and we'll have a discussion about all of the projects. Karen will evaluate the projects because it's our asset that we're trying to go ahead and repair and keep in good repair. And then we'll make decisions on what comes to you in the next month or so regarding the budget.
And you're meeting with the contracted management company.
We are meeting with Escape Lodging.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, and all of their top managers, their accounting people, the construction people, everybody is there. And we go with Karen, Lori, me. And I forgot, there's probably some other folks would be involved too. But that's a model that I'm referring to, that they do the whole enchilada. And that's fine, and then we would support that. My worst nightmare is that you have a committee directing our director.
Right.
Yeah, I think I understand
Yeah.
that.
Too.
But if we're considering either city staff or total outside contracted management, I'm just wondering about the chamber. And I think I mentioned this to Jim at one point. That is that something that fits into the scope? Are they in a position to be able to manage that that whole thing? I mean, they do have a room that they rent and for events. And so does this fit in with their role and their mission?
Yeah.
Look at me.
Is he groaning?
That's their decision and
No, yeah.
I tried not to look him in the eye when I said that, but
we are not.
Yeah, the chamber's a nonprofit.
I think that is one difference that we have with the RV park, is it is a for-profit business that is running the operation.
Right. But there are probably a lot of, and maybe not, but there probably are some nonprofit organizations who do that kind of work.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know how many, well. I don't know what kind of criteria you would use to find somebody, but would it be somebody that you would hire that work, I don't know, never mind.
I mean, well, maybe there aren't. I would just think that there would be I guess I'd like to see, again, examples of other comparable facilities and how they do it and how it works for them.
comparable is tough because we are talking about, I mean, examples like Seaside and Lincoln City that have
Right, big.
visitor convention bureau and then split off and, you know, multiple people and, you know, we're going to certainly be limited in the number of people that,
Right, but you don't think, I wonder if there are other smaller jurisdictions that have facilities that they,
I wonder if CETA would know of some.
They probably would. Jen has already started a research file on people that have something. And there's not, we haven't found a tourism related one yet. Other than possibly Bend, which is so broad.
yeah.
But we can look at those things. The other thing, and this goes to a question that Sam has asked and that I asked for 6 months. What are you gonna do there? That makes all the difference in the world. If it's gonna be a walkthrough facility and you know, somebody can go there and shoot some hoops, then, you know, at the end of the day, you sweep it. You're not gonna be collecting money. And it's just a pleasure to go and be in that location. And it's gonna be relatively low cost, but you're gonna make no money from it. Or you can go and try to, like for us, the best niche we could get into would be weddings. I would not want to see that myself because it would take over the site, you know, especially through the summer, which is our biggest time, but that's a policy question. We would have plenty of money to operate it. If that was the case, I think you change the nature of the facility. So, but somehow in there, when I'm saying, what are we going to do with it? Somebody's got to come up with that.
Yeah, I guess I was, because it has to be tourist related. I mean, it has to be if we're using tourist dollars, then we have to, you know, we have to have some purely tourist related functions in there.
Sure, and there are, I mean.
Like 50th wedding anniversary party or, you know, some limited wedding activity or, I mean, it seems like we need to make money in order to operate it. And it has to be tourist related. What kinds of, you know, conferences, not conventions, because conventions are huge, but conferences, you know, all those things that the kitchens would seem to accommodate things of that size. You know, and I was just, you know, and also having, you know, how like swimming pools have, you know, open hours and things like that. We would have open hours in the gym for people to come in and play pickleball or basketball. But there'd also be hours where that was restricted to tourism related paid activities.
and there's always available for those things when it's available is
The open concept, right?
Yeah, I think it's good to have specific open hours too, though, that you would have early in the morning or, you know, at times when you're not going to have special events in.
People have talked about the yoga festival or other kinds of things that can happen in the classrooms. So I would think it would be a smaller, somebody that had the skills to pull together a smaller event. Maybe it has done some event planning. And then also be responsible as like the general manager for, you know, the people that were there for doing the chairs and doing all the things that, you know, go along with that. So, but I don't necessarily, in my mind, see that you have to have events like a 50th wedding anniversary or something in a tourism related facility, because you're walking through and that the lobby is just a huge historical thing. The outside is a big historical map of what has happened here and the food, you know, the materials, all those kind of things. We're talking about, you know, possibly down the road doing the banks like we did on the other side of the creek to go ahead and restore salmon habitat, you know, those kind of things. So that to me is enough to come and see that, you know, That would be, if I want to learn, like it's historical and ecological tourism. And it's passive.
Yeah,
So, and with that, it's not that high of an expense. So it would be something that, and again, it could be supported with TLT funds. But I don't necessarily see, there's a jump in my mind that's like, okay, well, we're going to try to make money. Okay, it's not going to work. We might make some money, but we may make 20%. And then you've got all the hassles associated with that. So, maybe that's possible, and we could certainly explore it. But I think that the facility in itself and the property in itself is a draw.
like almost like a type of museum in some ways.
I
Yeah,
was gonna say, it sounds like a museum.
Yeah.
Also open for events.
Yeah, yeah. And if somebody wants to, if somebody's coming into town, a group of people or something like that, we've got classrooms, we've got 1,000-square-foot classrooms. If somebody wants to teach something, and if somebody wants to, I'm just blown away that it's the only city I've ever worked in that doesn't have a bridge club. Set Thursday afternoons for bridge and anybody can come,
choir practice,
all kinds of things.
cheese making class.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yes, of course. We don't want to miss that. But just to have events that are popular with people that travel, and to be able to come and meet a bunch of people and, playing bridge or whatever the thing is, coming in and exercising, playing pickleball. I think that we're getting a pickleball course so we could have a tournament countywide. You played in different places. So I think that there's some creativity can go with that. I don't know how much money it would make. It would just have to pay for itself. But there's a step where you trying to pay for the event, and unless we add a golf course, we're not going to get there.
Well, what you're describing is much more appealing to me than having a wedding and party venue. I just thought we had to do that.
In that case, we're more looking for a museum director that can also keep the schedule of events.
And that museum would be available not 24/7 because it's got to be supervised.
Yeah, but it would be open.
Right.
It would have normal hours.
Right.
And then you can make a policy decision. To me, if somebody wasn't using the gym, you can go in there and play. Kind of. So if somebody wants to go and exercise, wants to shoot a basketball, play some pickleball, I can go someplace and have indoor pickleball. So I'll go visit there.
Or if it's raining, an indoor concert.
Yeah.
That's,
They're just, to me, there's two different strata there, and there's probably other places in between. But I think that knowing that it's going to cost some money and that it's also bringing money because people are going to be coming from, far away and that'll be a place, one of their destinations. That is enough. I don't think that we have the same situation as what Seaside has, which they want to get as many people in and through the doors as they can and fill all the hotels and all that. And I don't think that we're in that position to have to say that, well, there's our, golden goose.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. I am. I was wondering.
Yeah. It's all a policy decision because it's going to cost money. But I think that there are things that I know someone that's a doctor that is always looking for an interesting place to go and take their practice. And so maybe it's 25, 30 people and we get them, into a hotel, and somebody had said that, well, nobody wants to have to drive to go to their place where their event is. They want to just walk out of their hotel room. I'm like, how many places have I ever gone that my choice was to walk on the beach on the Pacific to get to my meeting?
Right.
And so, maybe I'll drive, maybe there will be a shuttle or something like that associated with it, or I can just make this outrageous walk.
Yeah.
So But that's, if there was, to somebody, I would say it would be to those people. And we just try to make the person have that runs it, have that expertise.
Well, what do we need to do to get to a consensus on what the facility is? I don't know that anybody's making a case for, this facility we should maximize the dollars on this by packing it full of events at every opportunity.
I don't think
I think we're all in agreement with that.
Well, I'm certainly in agreement with it, but there's something that's unsaid, and is that gotta make something.
Right.
So
I agree. If
Got to be a balance.
it could be a facility that is
given that, well,
that we would charge for
is there a
events.
number? Do we need to make $100,000 a year? Do we need to make $500,000 a year?
I think the way I would look at it is if there's an event, like maybe it's a dentist's office or something, or a group of dentists, they want to come in, that we cover our costs on that.
Well, but I mean, my point is that we don't know what any of that is.
But we don't have an expense unless they come.
We got a lot of expense.
Well, I'm sorry, an expense for that
the
particular,
event.
for that event. We have an ongoing expense, there's no doubt about it. And that would have to be general fund, or it would have to be TLT. But then when somebody comes in and we're gonna have, food and cleanup and those kind of things, and we're going to close down a portion for a particular group, there's a value there. Like, if they want to shut down the gym and have a big volleyball, tournament or something like that, if we're shutting down the gym, they're going to pay for the time that the gym is shut down. We don't necessarily incur costs with that. But, and if they're using that room,
Well, I understand what you're saying, Bruce, but there is an inherent cost that we're going to have to pay to keep the lights on, to keep it maintained. And I just don't have a sense for, do we need to bring in 10% of that? Do we need to bring in 20? What's the metric that we need to be thinking about in order to make it a viable entity?
I think to me, the more important thing is to decide what you want it to be. If it's more likely to be something more passive, that's one answer. If it's going to be something that you're going to be doing weddings and those kind of events, that's a different answer, because you got a bunch more expenses with it. More management responsibilities, those kind of things. So I think that I could answer your question better if you were to tell me, all right, this is the way that we want, what we want it to be. And then we figure out what, like, and if it's more passive, that we find out what other passive places are doing with their expenses with similar facilities. Because we're gonna have to maintain the whole property. And then just say, you know what, that's gonna have to come out of TLT. And the TLT hopefully is offset by the fact that people are coming there. To be able to go ahead and do that. Another policy question that needs to be answered is, do you want to have a facility that does not have a cost to the city and to the rest of the residents and to the TLT? If you want to do that, then we have to figure out, okay, then maybe it's, $2 an hour to go in and play basketball or pickleball. And if somebody's going to come in and want to play bridge, then it's a $5 or $10 an afternoon or something like that. But there's just some questions that have to be answered by the council to say, okay, this is how we want this to go. And what I'm saying, there's a model that is more passive, and then there's a model that is we can work hard to recover all of our costs, but I've never seen a facility like this recover all of its costs.
I can't imagine anybody's even imagining that here.
Yeah.
I think the answer is somewhere more in the middle of those things, but it sounds like maybe the model we're looking at is more of a museum that hosts events. Which, I mean, so there are historical museums that bring in event, and it's a fundraiser for them to host an event. So I guess we need to look at models like that.
I don't, I don't want it to be a wedding venue or big party venue. But I don't want it so passive. I mean, we're spending $11 million on this thing. And I don't want an $11 million passive center.
No, that's why I think that.
So it's got to,
In the middle.
we've got to have some events there and not necessarily, we're obviously not going to make the money to cover the expenses for every year that we put all this money into, but we have to have some 10%, 20%, whatever. But we have to have some events that are fairly ongoing there and events that do bring in people from outside of town. Yes, we want events that cater to our own residents, pickleball and bridge club and Toastmasters, whatever. But we need to keep it in a tourist related facility, which means bringing people in from more than 50 miles away. And to make it an active place so that our $11 million really does perform the job that it's supposed to.
So, I mean, for example, if Portland State still had a dance department, they could bring in a summer dance workshop there, something like.
Those are the kinds of things that we should be looking at.
But I think the obvious part we're missing is the local events that struggle with venues, and I'm talking festivals.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
I have a little bit of experience with
That's the
that.
kind of thing, that's the kind of thing we should be looking at for the center, yeah.
And maybe even expanding on that kind of thing. But, you know, every event that I can imagine, that I can think of here struggles with venues. There's just not venues that actually make it possible to have some kind of return. So I think that's
the TAC interest.
What's that?
That's the TAC interest.
Yes.
It's, this provides venues, we'll put money into it.
Which I think every TAC recipient that they were asked the question and they all saw this as something that would actually help them with their events.
Yeah. And so something like a Get Lit, in one of those 1,000 square foot classrooms would be a big deal. It's a great venue for that. We can make it comfortable. There's all kinds of things.
Sam is waving back there, but
Santa.
Yeah.
There's also Andrew and Jim that might be helpful to weigh in on some of this, but I don't know. You're running the meeting, so you decide what's going on.
I would be glad to welcome some input from these.
This is the same conversation we've had for 8 years.
I know.
And that
I was in that back.
Just right now, what we need to be creating.
Hey, Sam, can you come up so we can make sure?
What we need to be creating.
Thank you.
Is a method to create the policies. And not define all the differences of what could and could not happen, but create the policies of how to use the space and the exterior spaces as well, because they are part of the venue. So you either need to huddle in a workshop of some kind and just hammer them out as a committee yourself, or find somebody that can present something to you or a series of options so that you can cherry pick the parts that you like. But it's not productive to just constantly battle back and forth about how much space does a certain party use. That's not the point. The point of the definition of the party doesn't make any sense. It's how many people fit in the space and how do you feed them, or how do they work with the restrooms, and how does the classrooms work when you've got pickleball going on? Those are policy issues that the manager would have to sort out and schedule for. So how do you schedule? How do you, I've got some of this stuff elsewhere, but and I agree that we could look at other venues. Nothing's going to match what we're doing, but we can get input on how other venues use their spaces. what they charge, the time that they allow for setup and the time they allow and things like that. I know Florence has a fairly reasonable sized conference center as compared to Seaside. It's a little smaller. Theirs is totally an arts thing. And one of the big concerns that I have, I'm going to switch topics a little bit. They had some troubles in Florence several years ago when I don't know how to do this in a public venue, but literally a version of the Nazis wanted to use the space. And because it was city organized, they could not say no. If it's a 501c3, you have that ability. That's a very minor thing that probably would never happen, but it's one to be concerned about. That's enough for me.
Thanks, Sam.
Anybody else?
I can say the chamber hasn't really thought about this. I've thought about it myself a lot. And to me, it comes down to logistics. What staff do you need to run this? We know the size of the building. Can we find other events spaces that are similar in size, and how are they run? And who runs them would be good to know. And what are those spaces used for? And specifically, since we are using TLT funds, it needs to be at least 51% tourism related. So we need to find an event center, similar size, used for event purposes. And that will give us a good idea of what the logistics are. How many staff do they have? How much upkeep does it require? How many events happen in that space? We got to find that information so that we can begin to develop all the policies, but we need to have an idea of what the cost could be, whether it's passive or event driven. And you need to look at all the different options and have all that information at hand to make that decision. That's the way I think about it. That's the way I've started asking questions to people that I know in event centers, just to kind of educate myself on what does it really take. I believe the Seaside Event Center has over a dozen staff to run that.
Yeah,
So
could be our
it's pretty extensive, and being a city-run organization comes with higher staffing costs because you have to meet all the qualifications that go along with that. So that's another aspect to consider. So that's just my thoughts on it, that I've done the research. Whether the chamber would like to take that on as a thing is a whole nother ball of wax that the board has to weigh in on and all that. So
I guess what I'm curious about is the facility useful? Could it be useful to you for Stormy Weather Arts Festival? Could it be useful for you for a culinary festival? Is it useful for you? I don't know. Sandcastle, what else?
Having a larger space, the Surf Sand and Tolvan have larger spaces that are available, but those usually come at a cost. And so for events, it's whether we can afford that cost, whether it's available for that or not, is what ends up being the deciding factor for us. So when you have a lodging facility with an event center, that usually comes with required room rentals that go along with it. So this doesn't have that, which might help alleviate some of that. My response to that is, of course, any event will use that space if it grows to that size. So having none of them, I don't know how many of our events really qualify that. I think we all aspire to grow big and have a great community event. That's the beauty of Sandcastle. It's all out on the beach, so we have plenty of room to grow. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my thoughts on it.
Well, you could answer the question yourself. It's for Sabre Cannon Beach. Would you use that event center for Sabre Cannon Beach if you were doing it?
I think it has possibilities for that
Yeah.
event.
And those are the kinds of sizes of festivals that we
Yeah.
have here. So,
I just thought of probably a better comparable than Midtown Grange. The Grange is able to be rented out for dances and stuff like that, but it's also used by their membership in a free situation. So the Newtown Grange is a lower scale. So not totally tourist oriented, but you can do tourist things. That's one area. The other one, I can't remember the name of it. It's placed by the pool in Seaside.
Or there's the Bob Chisholm Center, yeah.
They do classroom events there. So there's another comparable.
What was the name of the Grange?
Any,
Bob Chisholm,
oh,
it's
any,
HIN.
I got that one, but the Grange.
NETEL.
Just when we talk about the policies of at Tolawana Hall, we have a policy where if it's a community event and there's no money changing hands, if it's a meeting or, even if you wanted to, offer, if I wanted to do a book reading there or something like that, no money changes hands, community uses it for free. If money changes hands, we don't do rentals, we do a percentage split. So we'll take 25% for operations, marketing, and we don't have to, meet a big operating cost. So that's how that's possible.
Thank you.
And I like the community free events. I mean, I think that's.
Yeah, and another thing too, when we're talking and Lisa used the example of like a 50-year anniversary or something like that. That lobby is awesome. To be able to go ahead and have an event there, the food is right adjacent to it. It's set up so we set up for dinner tables, all kinds of things. So, you bring people, I don't know anybody that you're going to have a 50th wedding anniversary that you're not bringing somebody from out of town. But that room, let's not forget that room for something that's more on the elegant side, as opposed to something you would do in a classroom. But there's an awful lot of kind of events that could be held in that location. And that's one that you set a price for it. And you have, the price includes your cleanup. We hire professional cleaners. And same thing with there's food. We have arrangements on who can come in and use it. And then my thought on anything is we clean it. They don't clean up after themselves. I want to make sure that the person that uses the knife the next time knows everything was cleaned properly and professionally and not by people that were trying to do goodwill.
Well, to Sam's point, what kind of process are we going to go through here to say, this is what it is?
Well, I think,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, go ahead.
Well, I think we've arrived at several decisions.
I think we're making progress.
And in order to run the place the way we've now described, it obviously is going to have to be some type of paid staff. You're going to have to clean up after every event, or have some mechanism in place for it to be done to some type of standard. I think we've decided that, at least amongst ourselves this evening, that we're looking at. I don't like the word passive because it implies that you're going out of your way to not make money.
Right, and
that's my only issue with
that wasn't what I meant. It was.
I understand that.
I'm
I'm trying to wrap my head around, and that's why I kept asking, for some metrics, because that's how it would help me to understand what we would need to do in order to run it successfully. And successfully doesn't necessarily mean that it breaks even. Successfully to me means that it's accepted by the community. People enjoy going there, and it's a place that's a showcase for our town, which is, I think, what we've all been wanting to do.
And bringing people to town.
Yeah.
And educating people.
It's that's kind of where I see things that we have seem to be in an agreement on. And beyond that, I'm not exactly sure whether, if it's 501c3 that administers it, or it's professional management company. At this point, I don't. Yeah.
Well, something like the Cannon Beach Arts Association Art Camp is a good example. They use the church, and the Cannon Beach Arts Association makes sure that everything is cleaned up and that everything is put back where it's supposed to be after the camp is over. I mean, they're because and I think, I don't know if they pay for the church. I doubt it.
I don't think. they-
I don't think they do. And so as a result, they make sure that everything's cleaned up. But see, it's like something like that, the church, the rooms are too small for a lot of the classes in that art camp. It'd be great to have a bigger space. Wonderful. But it brings in money for the CBAA. I don't know what their profit margin is or if they make a profit, but they pay the teachers and they pay them pretty well. So they're paying local artists to teach at the camp. I don't know. It's just really.
That's a perfect fit.
Yeah.
There's one, the arts in there. And it had something to do haystack something. But.
The haystack class is at Portland State.
That was the Portland State thing.
Yeah, did we go ahead and we work something like, so that out is might be for a week or two or something. And maybe it takes over the place, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just in the classroom, like the classroom end and, maybe some art outside or something like that. But just to bring that kind of vibrancy back to the community. And, one thing that blew me away was the guy, remember the steel drum band? The guy that started that steel drum band made his first steel drum in that gym.
Right.
At that event.
Can I suggest, and I don't know how you feel about this, but maybe creating an ad hoc committee to take a look at some of these questions that we have and come back with some recommendations. And just for that particular purpose, not to operate the center, not to be in charge of operations, nothing like that, just an ad hoc committee that looks at what kinds of events we might have, make some recommendations on how it should be operated. And then, disbands after they make the recommendation.
And maybe looking at some other.
Yeah, look at
models.
other
Models.
venues,
Yeah.
like we did with the wetlands
Mhm.
committee and so forth. I think.
Yes. Elementary school social club,
Yeah.
social committee.
Yeah, the elementary.
It can't be a real committee. And maybe some people from some of the other, community members too could be on it, couldn't they?
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Just,
could be formed by, committee members,
and.
public, obviously. At least that would get us off the dime here.
Right. I think it's a great idea, actually. Come back with suggestions, ideas, brainstorming.
Making suggestions about how to operate it, whether or not the city should, or a 501c3 should be formed or whatever.
Volunteers? Okay, we've got hands.
We've got our first volunteer.
Yeah, I've attended lots of special events all up and down the coast for years. And I think of places like Newport has a Bayfront Historical Museum that is a fantastic place for events. Coos County has a maritime museum that's reasonably new that also hosts events. There's a seafood center in Charleston, which is a very cool kind of it's part aquarium, but part fishing industry exhibits.
It sounds to me like you'd be a perfect person for that committee. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Can
I would want to be a part of
The
that
Seafood
social.
Center in Astoria as well.
Not committee, I'm sorry, right. Yeah, social club.
We have.
I was gonna make a motion on your behalf for Gary.
Make motion.
I don't think you'll be able to keep me out.
So how do we form this committee and what are we charging them with?
Oh, $1,500.
What is their task? And how much time?
Yeah, good question.
However much time it takes, and that's how the Wetlands Social Club works. We just keep having meeting after meeting after meeting because that's how much time it takes.
But at some point, we need them to come back and
Well, sure.
report to us, and then
Soon
we
as-
develop the policies.
Right. As soon as they had as soon as we had something, we came back. And that would be the same, we worked as fast as we could.
And I think we should say that we're talking about operations only. We're not talking about the cost of the facility or design of the
Where
facility.
the bathrooms are gonna be.
Yeah, exactly.
But building on this conversation of facility,
What'll it be used for? What'll it be used for?
Yes.
How would we run it?
yes,
No,
what
that-
management would look like for that.
Yeah.
Use.
How the local population would be able to use it? What kinds of ramifications?
Did Sam want to be on that committee?
I was waiting to see his hand back there, but
I'll volunteer too.
I'll do it.
Okay, that'd be.
Less.
You know, of course. No more than 5 people, otherwise it gets.
It's,
And I'll,
everybody that's in this room, you're on the committee.
and I'll join this. I mean, we could have two
Sure.
of us. So. The 5, you guys gonna regret
it would be,
I think we probably need to let
3.
people outside of this room know that it's happening.
Hey, you snooze, you lose. No.
Everybody can participate is to come to the committee meetings.
So they can do that, sure.
But we can't, can we have those meetings here in City Hall?
We can have them at Tolawano Hall.
This is gonna be a lot,
Yeah.
might be.
How much is that?
well,
What's that?
Why,
we didn't for the wetlands.
I mean, your wetland was 3 people that were just talking about things that you're gonna then eventually.
I think we need to run it.
Direction. And input, so I'm wondering.
suggestion?
Suggestions. I'm wondering if this is getting a little bit bigger than what the wetlands group was.
I think that if it's going to be advisory to you, then it does have to meet the sunshine, I call it the sunshine laws.
Right.
Or the Oregon meeting laws. Where they just have to announce when they're going to get together. They should not be having separate conversations. That sort of thing, so people can come in and say, this is what I like, or I don't like what you said. Those kind of things.
And so this would be like the short-term rental task force.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So that's the great example. It's not an actual city sanctioned committee in your ordinance, but it's one that was created by a resolution for a job, a goal. And it had with
The task was to advise city council on the short-term rental policies.
and all of that, I believe, was in the resolution that was created.
Were they appointed by the city council?
Yes, they were,
Okay.
yes.
But they volunteered too. I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
And
So
the
they were volunteers that people wanted, I mean, this one was a little different.
They applied and yeah,
Oh, that's true.
yeah.
And this one had like 7 members and 2 alternates, and they had the first group, and then you kind of rotate your alternates in until you run out of alternates, and then we advertise for more alternates.
The difference being that was a multi-year task force.
Yeah, this is not going to be.
It's not gonna take, I mean, it can't give that long.
No,
Because we.
No, we could outline a time, a reasonable amount of time, like the decision or recommendation.
Yeah, and that would be in the resolution as well.
You have 2 council, Gary and Barb, for sure, who want to be on it, right?
Bruce?
Trying to think if does this go along smoothly? This side is the design and construction. This side is the task force or whatever that you're talking about. I think that they can coexist well as long as we can get the decision made on the funding of the facility.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm saying if there won't be a conflict there, I think there is a conflict if we don't resolve how the funding is going to be. Because without knowing what the funding is going to be, we don't know what the facility is. And so what facility are they is this group working on?
Well, you're saying do the funding first and then,
Well, it can be, I think that the funding, I think the funding is possible to make a decision on by the time you start this, to make the appointment. But if it goes a long time, it's like, are we looking at option 2, option 3, option 4? And those are all different answers as far as how you would run a facility or what the facility is capable of. So at some point, we have to know what the facility is. And in my mind right now, the only thing that's out there is the funding decision, which we can get into. It'll be after we meet with the chamber and
When do we do that?
We're going to talk about that and go to the order.
yeah.
Okay.
But I think that up
Yeah,
Tonight.
in 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Well, I guess,
in agreement with the.
in terms of what do we do now? We know we've decided we kind of want a committee, but how do we go about forming the committee
So
now?
I'll email Ashley tomorrow, just for clarification, so that way, like Bruce says, we have the sniff test, we're good.
Okay, and then- Timing in terms of when do we want to have them come back to us with a recommendation?
Well, I think some of that's going to depend on
The conversation we're going to have?
the
About
funding.
funding conversation, right?
And with a committee like this, what happens is that they start looking here and they realize they gotta look here and here and here. So it's gonna take some time because they're gonna want to do research. There's other things like that that'll happen. So but we're six months away from even breaking ground. So this can take a little bit of time if you want.
And it can be, it's a short-term rental. We called it a committee, right? Or did we call it a
Task
committee?
force.
Task force. So this would be a task force as well.
Yes. But I think you,
That's a good title for it.
I'm just gonna add that it wouldn't be hard once you have your policies in place, or at least a general idea, the committee, the task force can easily scale it back and say, we've got 5 options for you. That's not a problem.
But do you feel like we have enough of general policy about what we want to see happening?
I do. I've known that for years, but
I would add one thing. I don't know if there's been any legal expertise that weighed in on what really needs to be to satisfy, the amount of people or we talked loosely about this 51%, but like, how does that pass in muster legally? Then you really know that would line out so many of the policies, top from the top.
it would, except that it's not specific. It's substantially tourism related. And so there's not a 51%, it could be 47%. But also, we're not going to know. I don't see us doing a survey every time somebody comes through. Are you a tourism? Do you live more than 50 miles away?
Or just, let's say that there's basketball open gym tonight. It's offered to anyone, visitor, it's offered to a visitor, does that count? I mean, like,
Yeah.
where does it, what?
Sure, people that are just walking through and looking at the plants, that counts. And remember, I mean, it's got a history component and it's got an ecological appointment or part. And there are tourism related associated with that. And one of the ones that I remember Jim Kingwell was excited about was the possibility of birders to be able to come in because there's things going on around there. We've got the forest reserve, we've got all of this. And, they're pretty much self-organized and
I thought he said murder.
Oh,
yeah,
I thought he said burgers.
I did too, I'm hungry.
yes, birders. And he said that statistically, they're probably the best group that you want to have come in.
Sure.
They stay long, they spend a lot.
Yeah, Andrew, I think it comes down to our intention.
Mhm.
And not so much figuring exact metrics.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with the way, that we can market and let people know that it's there. But it's the ecological and the educational and the environmental. There's people going to come here.
Okay, I think we've got enough.
Okay,
Do you feel? Sound like you're ready to.
Yeah,
Send something
just so you guys know, I've actually started her email. I'm gonna shoot that off to her. And if she says yes, a resolution, we can go ahead and do the resolution on May 2nd. And on May 9th, we're adding a special meeting to your work session. So as soon as that resolution is approved, these people who have graciously volunteered can apply, and you can even appoint them at May 9th.
But you are going to have to appoint.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, ready to go on?
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you, as always. Thank you, volunteers. Aren't you glad you came to the meeting tonight? Okay, so under good of the order, I think we need to come up with some possible dates for the chamber to talk to their lodging operators about a meeting with us.
Yes.
Thank you. So
Did you guys have special meetings and whatnot?
We've been struggling to find dates.
Yes, we have.
So I think the last time we talked with Jim, wasn't it, did we decide mornings were probably better?
Morning's fine with me, I guess. I don't know, Jim, what do you?
So in reaching out, the 18th was a day that was brought up, and I talked to the three.
April 18th,
Yeah, and
we already got another meeting.
the problematic for the people I talked to,
Okay,
because they're either out of town, they're doing something. It was tough. So if I'm gonna garner all the lodging people together to come and provide you information and back and forth with you, I want to make sure that we can get the people who have that.
Ready on now.
Can I ask who you're reaching out to?
That was mom and dad.
Oh, not that.
I reached out to the three that you recommended to talk to them, and Doug has a homeowners meeting out of town. Patrick was available for a brief window, and I haven't heard back from Greg yet. And I think if I had more options than one date of what days you were available, then I can get a better group of everybody.
Are you talking during the day or the evening, in the morning?
You can pick days, then I think we can figure out times.
Okay. Well, some of us are busy during the day and not at night and vice versa, so. What's best for you guys? You know,
I think at this point, both Patrick and Doug said, if we have representation there, it doesn't have to be me. But certainly they have voiced their opinions, and I think my intention is to call a lodging group meeting together and inform them of the options. And then get a consensus from them on which is best, who wants to represent the lodging community, whether it's Patrick and the people you suggested or other people's from the lodging group. And then that way we can coordinate the meeting.
And will they be local people?
Well, that'd be the lodging group, yeah.
I mean, not like a lobbyist from out of town.
It'd be the lodging group, our lodging members is who I'm bringing.
local lodging operators,
Okay.
right?
And I think everybody's invited. We're just looking for a representative panel to really go back and forth with.
Right, it's a public meeting,
So,
but yeah. But we'd have, three representatives. What I envision is that we'd have three representatives who would support the group. Okay.
I would always prefer late mornings on.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, how about Monday, April 24th? Because we've said we wanted to do this in the next few weeks. That,
I am good.
I am too.
Isn't that the,
Coffee with.
No, that's
Coffee's on the 17th, next Monday.
is it this 25th and?
oh, I have scholarship interviews that day, the 24th,
the 24th, okay. So,
but I'm done at by
What's that?
3:30. I have scholarship interviews on 24th.
This is 21st,
Good later too.
So
I thought you said the 24th.
she did,
Okay.
but I mean, we could
24th
three-
after
three,
or even
3:30.
evening. Well, you're done at 3:30? 24th at 3:30?
Yeah,
okay, so there's an option.
That's a Monday?
Yeah,
that,
Would that give you a couple other dates out to give you as a?
Yeah.
I'm hoping to have 3 or 4 options to present to the group, and that way I can get as many people to agree.
Okay.
What about Thursday, the 20th? Well, you guys have the League of Oregon Cities. I don't want to. Well, I guess if you chose Monday or Thursday, so Thursday, the 27th, is there a time frame that might work?
I can do it anytime.
27th. Oh, just think of the.
Yeah, that would work.
I would be good after 3, so 3:30 on.
Wait a sec. Thursday, I wish I had my calendar. Thursday, April 27th, and the first one was
The 24th.
the 24th, which is a Monday. Okay. All right.
No, sticking with the Monday themes.
Thursday, April 20, no, okay, is that planning commission?
It is planning commission that night,
Okay, but during the day, it's.
but during the day we can do it. So
If we
I
went
guess-
3:30 to 5.
Yeah, so if you're looking, if you can't start till 3:30, we do have a time, we have to be done by 5:30, so that would.
That's good. Yeah.
So 3:30 as an option?
Is that the 27th you're still talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you guys want to throw a couple dates out from the next week?
Next week's, that starts budget meetings.
Yeah,
I have budget for the 3rd and the 4th. We on the 3rd and the 4th?
just the 4th.
Yeah, I've only got the 4th.
Oh, I think originally it was the 3rd and then it got moved to the 4th. So
Okay.
originally we did Wednesdays and they got moved to Thursdays.
Okay.
So that's where the,
So the 3rd is open? May 3rd?
I'm open all day on the 3rd.
At food pantry, but I could be there. I could meet until 2:45 at any time.
I'm free on the,
So May 3rd, the morning, late morning and early afternoon?
Yeah.
Okay.
so we're talking like 11? 11 a.m. because then that gives them some time options.
okay.
And then do you guys want to pick a 4th option?
Do you think we need 4?
I think
you need 6.
this is good enough.
I think 3.
3 options seem to be reasonable.
I think 3 is reasonable.
Okay,
And like I said, I'm gonna get everybody together and present these as the times and the dates. We'll see. Hopefully the people that are passionate about this are available. And if not, we'll get as many together as we can and have a panel to represent the lodging group for you guys.
You know, I think we need a lodging person on the committee, the ad hoc committee too, or the task force. Too.
yeah, you wouldn't talk to somebody about that?
So from a timing perspective, we typically try to post our agendas at least 7 days in advance, but we can do maybe 5 days. So if we could get
And we'll have that as soon as possible and get an answer back to you.
perfect.
ASAP.
And then for council, I'll send you guys calendar invites holding your spots.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. We'll do it before we leave.
Possibly.
Swedenborg,
Any,
Greg Swedenborg.
he'd be,
Yeah, you'd be good.
anything else for good of the order?
Coffee with the counselors on Monday.
Jason?
I just want to give you a quick update. I don't know if you guys have been following Gunner's situation.
Oh, yeah.
That cancer, but he had surgery today and they think they removed all of it and he'll be able to come home tomorrow. So
Oh, good.
Yay.
Thank you. Nice to. Yours has to be good news.
Oh, it's good news.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, we have filled the position of market manager, the
Oh, good.
Tracy Gable.
Oh, great.
Oh,
Great.
We've taken that.
Darn it.
And so
Yeah,
I was thinking of her for this too.
I know.
yeah,
So she's now a city employee. She won't
Yes.
be on committee,
yeah.
but she'd be good.
And the second thing,
Can't be on Enforcement and Arts.
You're a
She's
city,
on Parks, I think.
no, she's on,
No.
Unpack.
Yeah, she hasn't actually started.
Started.
You're right. Now that we've hired her. Yeah, she's not taking notes.
So got the partial good news.
it was pretty good news.
be good.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear.
Excellent.
The other thing, I don't want to get too excited, but we have invited somebody to come into town for interviewing for the community development director position. And so they will be coming and we deviously decided that the best date for that would be April 27th. And they could stay for the meeting, the 7 or 8 item meeting, however it is, and kind of get an idea of all the things that arise, the planning commission meetings.
Oh, we should have. Coming from where, Bruce?
Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Ooh.
Never met anybody from Wisconsin I didn't like.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. So anyway, so that may be something that works out, but certainly they will get a good eyeful of what they would be up against.
So they're gonna, is that person going to be attending the planning commission?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
So we're still looking.
And after that, we'll go ahead and advertise one more time.
Okay, anything else?
Ashley replied, yes, we need a resolution.
Okay, thank you.
We'll get that going.
Thanks, Jim. Good call. Anything else? Okay, thank you all. We're adjourned.